It is 1:09 p.m. Good morning. I'm calling this hearing of the Fair Rent Commission to order. We'll begin with roll call. Dave Cotillo, Chairman.
Can't hear you.
Check. Dave Cotillo, Chairman.
Robert Rimmer.
Elena Oppenheimer.
Leo Bombalicki.
John Barb, Secretary.
David Tice, Town Attorney.
This hearing is convened pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-148B through 7-148D, concerning tenant complaints filed after the implementation of a rent increase at the subject property. The Commission understands that this matter has generated substantial public interest and strong feelings on all sides. We want to assure all parties at the outset that every person will be treated respectfully, every side will be heard fairly, and this Commission's decision will be guided not by emotion, applause, or volume of attendance, but by the evidence presented and the law we are sworn to apply. This hearing is being recorded and televised. Accordingly, I ask all participants to maintain decorum. Interruptions, outbursts, or repetitive commentary will not assist the Commission in reaching a lawful decision. The Commission is not here today to conduct a general grievance session or to determine whether any party is entirely satisfied. Our legal duty is narrower, to determine whether the rental charge now in effect is, considering all relevant statutory circumstances, so excessive as to be harsh and unconscionable. Under Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-148C, that requires this Commission to evaluate all competent evidence under the statutory factors prescribed by law, including property condition, services provided, landlord expenses, comparable rents, the amount and frequency of the increase, and all other relevant circumstances. In making this determination, the Commission will consider the evidence presented. Repetition of the same complaint by multiple speakers does not necessarily constitute additional evidentiary weight. The Commission will assess the credibility, specificity, documentation, and legal relevance of the evidence presented. Having outlined the Commission's role, the legal standard governing this process, and the manner in which evidence will be considered, the Commission will now proceed to the evidentiary portion of this hearing. At this stage, the Commission will receive evidence from the parties. Before testimony begins, I will ask all persons intending to offer factual testimony to please stand at this time and be sworn. Please raise your right hands. I'll now administer the oath. The appropriate response is I do. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury? Thank you. You may be seated. We will now begin with the tenant complaints.
Good afternoon, members of the Fair Rent Commission. My name is Jackie Vesey, and I'm a resident of Beechwood. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to address several statutory factors we believe are especially relevant to this petition. First, many of us live in manufactured homes, which are often misunderstood. These are not trailers. They are permanent homes that residents own, maintain, insure, and pay taxes on. And unlike conventional tenants, we cannot simply move if lot rents become unaffordable. Relocating a manufactured home is often impractical or impossible, making residents uniquely vulnerable to unreasonable increases. Beechwood provides housing for a population of seniors and residents on fixed incomes. Excessive increases can make it difficult for residents to remain housed and feeling secure. Under SF6, residents bear substantial costs beyond lot rent, including repairs, plumbing, heating systems, roof work, lawn care, snow removal, and emergency maintenance. These are necessary expenses to keep our homes safe and viable. Under SF7, residents already shoulder significant financial burdens beyond the current $598 monthly land lease fee. We are not ordinary renters. We pay lot rent, but we also pay taxes, insurance, utilities, repairs, and maintain homes we own. We carry the burden of both tenants and homeowners. For many residents living on approximately $1,900 a month in Social Security income, lot rent and basic living expenses consume nearly all available income before unexpected costs arise. Under SF9, fixed income reality is critical. Additional rent increases are not simply inconvenient, they threaten housing stability. And because our homes cannot realistically be moved, unaffordable lot rents can mean not only losing housing, but losing the value of the homes we own. Residents have also borne additional costs where services have been lacking, including expenses for supplemental snow removal, extensive lawn maintenance obligation, and increased water bills resulting from required lawn watering. These resident-incurred costs should be considered when evaluating whether the proposed increase is reasonable. We are not arguing that no increase can ever be justified. We are asking whether this proposed increase is reasonable under the statutory factors, considering resident hardships, unavoidable homeowner costs, limited mobility, and the services provided. Rising owner costs alone do not end the analysis. The statute requires balancing those costs against resident hardship. We respectfully ask the committee to protect both fairness and affordability and to substantially limit this increase. Thank you very much.
At this time, counsel for the landlord will have an opportunity to question the complainant. There we go.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Wilson Carroll, and I'm an attorney with Coleman & Wolfe in Bridgeport. Just a question, Mr. Chairman. My understanding from the agenda is that there was going to be opening and arguments.
That's correct, my mistake. You may make your opening statement.
Thank you. So I'm here today on behalf of Sun Communities, and particularly Sun's Beechwood community here in Killingworth. I'm also joined today by Brandon George, Sun's Division Vice President, as well as Mike Kane, Sun's Regional Vice President, and Kimberly Lombard, who's on site at Beechwood. Both of whom, Mike and Brandon, both will be testifying and discussing various exhibits throughout the course of this proceeding. We are here today because a group of Beechwood residents filed essentially identical Fair Rent Commission complaints in response to Sun Beechwood's annual land lease rent increase notice, in which Sun proposes to raise the annual land lease rent by $27. And because Beechwood is a 55-plus community, this commission is charged with determining, under the 13 factors set forth in Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-148C, whether that proposed $27 rent increase is either harsh and unconscionable, unfair and inequitable, or is in fact fair and equitable. If this commission determines that the rent increase is harsh and unconscionable or unfair and inequitable, you have the power to set a rent rate that you deem is fair and equitable. But not all of the 13 statutory factors need to be given the same weight, and it is up to you as a commission to decide what weight to place on each factor. And case law in Connecticut, as well as the Fair Rent Commission Handbook, groups those 13 factors into 6 categories for convenience, so I'll go through those categories. Number 1, the size and history of rent increases. Number 2, the condition of the premises, including whether the premises are substandard. Number 3 is the landlord's operating costs. Number 4, the facilities and services that are included in rent. Number 5, the comparable rents in the neighborhood and the municipality. And number 6, the income of the tenant and the availability of places to which the tenant can afford to move. And I'll remind the commission as well, and I'm sure you are aware, but the burden of proof is on the complainants in this proceeding to prove that the proposed rent increase is harsh and unconscionable or unfair and inequitable under those factors. What we will show throughout the course of this proceeding is that Sun Beechwood's land lease rents are among the lowest of any mobile manufactured home community in Connecticut, that Sun Beechwood's premises is in an excellent condition, that Sun Beechwood's operating expenses are increasing at much faster percentages and rates than their rent increases are, that Sun spends a significant percentage of its revenue, averaging over $366,000 per year, on capital improvements to Beechwood, and that Sun Beechwood's amenities, facilities, and services are among the best of any mobile manufactured home community in Connecticut. Under the facts we will present today as applied to the statutory factors that the Commission is charged with considering, we are confident that a $27 rent increase is fair and equitable. I don't have any cross-examination for the opening statement.
Thank you very much. All right, the chair now recognizes the next tenant complainant.
Mr. Chairman, me and Jackie were together.
That's fine, go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, and Sun has this, we gave this to Sun. We had meetings with them.
Excuse me, Mr. Joyce, I would ask that you use the microphone when being recorded.
Okay. I have these forms that I can make.
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Bill Joyce. I'm on 28 Swan Lake Trail in Beechwood community. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank the committee for hearing us. What we are asking for is, the committee side, we're asking for 0.25% above COLA for the next 5 years. That's what we're asking the committee. And if you take a look at the chart that I gave you, it shows in the last 4 years of Jensen and the last 4 years of Sun, they've increased by over 3.5%. 3.5%. I don't mind 2%, a little more, but over 3.5% with a loss of services, a cutback, and Jensen with their increases, and you can see where the increases, and then if you go to the far end, you see inflation, is that they were doing exact same things and more. They were putting in retaining walls. Sun Corporation is not. They were doing a lot of tree work, a lot more material when it came to drainage, and a number of things, excuse me. From there, they were doing brush trimming, water. They had more maintenance workers than we have right now. They had 6 in the summer, and they had 4 during the season. Granted, some of those 4, 2 of those 4 would go to different parks, but generally 3 days out of the week, we would have 4 people there, except in the summertime. And so they cut back on that. Right now, we just have one maintenance person in the park. And so I just wanted to point that out to you, the graph, and you can basically see it. We want Sun to make a profit. They deserve to make a profit, don't get me wrong. But these increases over time have increased immensely than compared to the person who owned the park. And that's it, unless you have any questions.
Should we regard this as the opening statement, just procedurally?
Yes.
Okay. Then thank you.
All right, thank you.
Does the commission have anything? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Joyce. At this point, we will now recognize the next tenant complainant. So at this point, openings have been delivered. This will now be considered as testimony. Tenants will have an opportunity to present their testimony. Landlord will have an opportunity to question. The commission will have an opportunity to question as well. That's the format we'll be using at this point.
To the committee, to the commission, I would like to broaden this out and present I'm appealing as a community. I have been a resident of Beechwood community for 25 years. I'm speaking today about my concerns for the future of this community If rents continue to go up at the rates established over the past several years, increases that, as far as I can see, have not brought increased services. In the past, it might have been possible to take a single wide trailer to a cheaper location, but cheaper places hardly exist. Older trailers may not make it, and the cost of the process is prohibitive. Modular homes are not set up to be easily moved at all. So here we sit, invested in our homes, renting the land, and without leverage, powerless. I view fair rent committees and commissions as the only leverage available to citizens living in communities like Beechwood, run by large out-of-state corporations. American corporations, in my opinion, are three-legged stools. One leg is the C-suite of highly paid executives, the second is the shareholder, and the third is the consumer. Executives have a strong incentive to please the shareholders, but seems an ever-dwindling concern for the consumer. And of course, they have teams of legal experts whose job it is to make the corporate case. But if the consumer leg of that three-legged stool collapses, the stool no longer stands. In my opinion, it is the interest of all concerned to see that that doesn't happen. No one expects rents to remain the same. Our issue is with the yearly rate of increases. The tenant's proposal is for a COLA plus a 0.25 percentage point yearly increase for the next 5 years. That means the Sun Corporation recoups its increased cost and gets an overall increase to their income. As the base rent increases, that same percentage brings in more money. I'd hate to see the Beechwood community deteriorate or the homes stand empty because people have to abandon them and newcomers don't want to buy them because of the high land rate cost. I don't think it is in the interest of any part of that three-legged stool to see this happen. Neither is it in the interest of the larger Killingworth community or the state. We all understand the urgent need for housing here and across the nation. Communities like Beechwood serve as a valuable source of such housing, and in our case, senior housing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Landlord Council have any questions?
And for the record, this is Attorney Wilson Carroll. My questions are directed essentially towards whoever is going to be acting as a representative for multiple complainants. I don't know if it would make sense for me to do it at the end of their presentations, or...
You certainly may if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think I would prefer to do it that way.
That would be fine. So then, I know you just sat down, ma'am, but does the commission have any questions of the witness? All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We'll now recognize the next tenant complainant.
My name is Jen Zakraszewski at 8 Boulder Trail. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, and 2/3 of this community who file complaints because most people are afraid to speak for fear of retaliation. The sheer number of complaints alone should signal to the commission that something is seriously wrong. The committee should understand the full business model here. Sun does not just collect lot rent. It purchases older homes or evicts elderly tenants who can no longer afford the rent, tears down the old homes, replaces them with new homes, and sells them at a significant profit, which it's entitled to do. That is exactly how we came to Beechwood. We bought our newly constructed home with the intention of staying in this community long term. However, we discovered serious construction defects. Our initial complaint to Department of Consumer Protection went unresolved because Sun denied wrongdoing. I then turned to HUD, who inspected my house and 3 others, and determined that our homes have construction defects and violate federal statute. HUD ordered Sun to fix these homes 8 months ago. and these defects have remained unresolved, so I was forced to file a lawsuit in Superior Court. The lawsuit alleges CUPPA fraud and negligence. We continue to pay rent for a home that remains out of compliance under Criteria 8. This situation has created enormous stress for my husband and me and has cost us significant money. The next issue, Sun's discovery. First, it has only provided rental income. The revenue from new homes and listing homes is completely missing. Currently, there are 6 or 8 empty lots that are awaiting new homes with a potential profit of over $500,000. Next, Sun's capital improvement document appears to be misleading. This exhibit shows a $68,000 line item for lot 29, which is my lot. This is the property they flipped and sold to me for $250,000. It appears that Sun is attempting to present it to this commission as evidence of reinvestment in our community. Other lots appearing in the capital improvement that sold between 2021 and 2025 include lot 192, which sold for $275,000, lot 262, which sold for $239,000, lot 105, which sold for $235,000, lot 257, which sold for $185,000, and lot 123, which sold for $200,000, just to identify a few. These are not capital improvements. They are either maintenance costs Sun is obligated to perform, costs for fixing construction defects, or costs for preparing lots for profitable home sales. Their list also includes vehicles and equipment, which are depreciating assets for which they are likely taking tax depreciation deductions. I respectfully submit that the credibility of this entire exhibit should be questioned, and that the bulk of these line items do not qualify as reinvestment to our land accommodation under Criteria 13. Finally, I respectfully ask the committee to consider not just the numbers, but the people, your fellow community members, neighbors, brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles that live in this community, and to find that this increase is harsh, unconscionable, and unjustified. Are you going to side with your community or an out-of-state multi-million-dollar corporation? Thank you.
We do, thank you, ma'am. We do have a question.
Thank you. I'm trying to make sure I've got the right reference you made on the capital improvement sheet to your experience, and I think you said it's listed as 029. Is that right?
Correct. So I actually
$68,000.
Yes, I have. I actually brought the exhibit and highlighted it for my own references, so I can direct you exactly to the expenses.
I think I found it. It's dated 10/7/21. Is that right?
Correct.
And what do you say that was?
I don't know what that is, but my home, from what I understand from a neighbor, is that there were people living there that did not pay their rent. There may have been an eviction. They tore the home down. The permit was pulled in August of 2022, which fits in with the timeline of 10/7/2021, and we purchased the home in 2023, but we signed the contract in 2022. I will also note that the other home that is subject to the HUD letter is right beneath that, which is lot 105, which is 48 Bridle Path. There's a $55,000 charge, which is 10/7/2021. They purchased their home in 2022. I can keep going if you want.
Thank you.
Commission, have any other further questions?
How many years have you lived?
We moved in, we've been there 3 years now.
Anything further from the commission? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Wasikowski, and I reside at 14 Swan Lake Trail in the Beechwood Home Park here in Killingworth. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my story with you. I purchased my home in June of 2023, so I am relatively new to the community compared to most of my neighbors. However, I am very concerned about the continually increasing rental fees charged by Sun over the past 3 years. When I first bought my house, the monthly land rental was $516. Beginning this June, I will be charged $598 per month, an increase of almost 16% over what I was paying 3 years ago. And that's a whole lot more than my Social Security check has gone up over the same time period. The Sun rental increases, combined with rising utility, grocery, and gas prices, are making it impossible to live off of Social Security. Why is Sun allowed to increase their rates to the tune of 5.4%, 5%, and 4% annually when no one receives a hike in their income anywhere close to these percentages? When asked why some of our services suffered over the past couple of years, Sun's response was that they were not up to full staff. Well, that being the case, our monthly rental fees should not have gone up nearly as much because they weren't paying as much as they did, and the rates continue to go up. At the rate we're going, many of us will not be able to afford to live in Beechwood. And worse yet, the high rental fee will make it difficult, if not impossible, to sell a property in the community. Who wants to knowingly buy into a property with a history of increasing rental fees at the rate Sun has been imposing on its current homeowners? I ask myself, where will this leave many of us, like me, in the very near future? In closing, I thank you again for your interest in the Beechwood community and the plight that we as homeowners are facing.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Are there any questions from the commission?
Thank you. You just said that as part of your comment, you said that you're fearful you'll be priced out of the community. And my question, maybe it's an overall question, but you just said it, so I'm going to ask you: if you were priced out of the community, what do you consider your options as to where you might otherwise go?
I don't have a place. I don't have a place in mind. I don't know what would happen. I honestly don't. And my concern is that, if I did go into an assisted living place or, a home of some sort, if I can't sell my place because of what the rental fees are, then I'm SOL, basically.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Thank you very much, ma'am. Chair now recognizes the next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Shapiro. I live at 19 Boulder Trail in Beechwood. But I'd first like to thank the Fair Rent Commission for their time and consideration. Thank you. When I moved here in 2016, Beechwood was owned by Jensen, a Connecticut-based family business with 31 communities on the East Coast, the majority of which were in Connecticut. Sun Communities took over 3 years later in 2019. Sun's a global real estate investment trust with hundreds of communities across the US, Canada, and the UK. In Jensen's final 4 years, rent increased a total of $33. By comparison, in the most recent 4 years, Sun's rent has more than tripled to $117. Sun's real estate taxes on the 2024 grand list was less than $150,000. Again, in comparison, Sun's annual rent is over $2 million for Beechwood alone. And the diminished services of our common areas, we are responsible, as you know, for maintenance of our own lot and the land that Sun owns. on our lot. The greatest concern looking forward is that based on Sun's current rate of 4.73%, rent will exceed $10,000 annually in less than 10 years. So in less than a decade, what was initially intended to be affordable living for our elderly community will instead become so expensive that the majority of our residents who rely on fixed incomes will be forced out of their homes. And then we'll face great difficulty selling our homes. I think it's going to be really difficult to find a buyer willing to look past the extremely high and unappealing rent costs brought on by Sun. My place is 800 plus square feet, and in 10 years, I have to pay $10,000 in rent. I don't think anybody would want to do that. My house will be, I'm sure, eliminated, and a new one will be built. This means that we as residents will lose our equity in our homes, while Sun will gain another opportunity to profit. It's easy to see how Jensen focused on its residents by making financial decisions that maintain the affordability promised to our elderly communities. It's also easy to see how Sun, as a multi-million-dollar investment trust, focuses on its shareholders and profits by cutting services and making financial decisions that outprice the elderly. While it may never be possible to return to the care and community-driven services of Jensen, it is possible to enact safeguards and restrictions on land rent increases, which are vital to the survival of residents in Beechwood and other communities like it. What I'm asking is for the Fair Rent Commission to do everything in your power to help us set clear guidelines and restrictions for rent increases in our community. This will not only allow myself and my fellow elderly residents to remain in our homes, it will also provide us with peace of mind knowing that Sun will allow us affordability in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I have a question, if I could. Can you elaborate on, I believe you used the phrase diminished services. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yes. Yes, I can. I think someone was talking about this earlier. There are diminished services mainly in the common areas of Beechwood. Jensen had a full-time maintenance staff. That doesn't seem to exist here. They provided landscaping services, daily debris removal, and preventative tree care. There was an arborist on their payroll. Those things aren't happening. We used to get, under Jensen, our bushes on the perimeters of the property and next to our homes were trimmed on a yearly basis. That doesn't exist anymore. Also, we had water work done. We were all subject to having meters put in our houses individually. And the roads are a patchwork now. And I questioned Sun at another meeting, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the person who answered me. I asked why the roads weren't a consistent color, why they were a patchwork. And he said they couldn't afford to fix the roads. So, that's about it. I personally have never had a personal problem with Sun.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe there's another question.
Anybody else?
Thank you. You made a comment about Sun's real estate taxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm curious, and we'll ask Sun when it's their turn, but it appears they had a substantial decrease between 24 and 25. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
I was going to ask you if you knew why, but we'll figure it out later.
No, but that makes the over $2 million rent even worse.
Any further questions from the commission? Thank you so much, ma'am. Chair recognizes the next speaker.
I'm Sheila Kimball. I live at 43 Whitewood Road. I'm very concerned, and I appreciate your time on this Saturday afternoon. I'm very concerned about the level of increase year after year for the rental fee at Beechwood. I own one of the largest models of manufactured homes in the community at almost 1,700 square feet. In 2015, my husband and I took the largest model that they had and made it 2 feet longer and 1 feet wider. My husband has recently died unexpectedly, and now my income has been cut, obviously, because he has passed away. Originally, we had planned to be living there for 30 to 35 years. At the current rate of increase, our monthly rate could be over $800 a month over the next 4 years. At that level, I understand that I could lose 40 to 50 grand in trying to sell my home. Sun Communities wants to protect the equity of their properties. I want to protect the equity and value of my home.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Other questions from the commission?
Bob Bailey?
We'd like the committee to know Bob Bailey does not live in Beechwood, is a two-tour Vietnam veteran, and he worked for another park, and he likes to talk for us.
Attorney Carroll, I'm inclined to let him speak unless you have something.
Yeah, I was going to adopt on the basis that he's not a resident of this community or a complainant.
We brought that up here.
Understood. I am going to allow Attorney Carroll, I'll allow them to call the witness.
My name is Robert Bailey. I live at 52 Evergreen Springs in Clinton, Connecticut, and I've been there since 2005. My main objective is to support what's happening with mobile home parks. Not just one, but everyone. Everyone that's in the state. We did some more investigation because we're having trouble with our corporation also. And also, I filed a fair rent complaint, and I found it very interesting that there was no requirement for the corporate to furnish any evidence to back up anything they said. Everything came from me. I was also told that I couldn't go outside the community to get references, to compare prices with other mobile home parks. I had to stay in Clinton. Well, it's funny that our corporate company, we have 4 mobile home parks in Clinton, and they're all owned by the same person. So I don't know what kind of comparison they expected me to get. So I went outside of that and got some comparisons, and I was told by corporate at my meeting, and this is what's happening. I was told at corporate at my meeting that I needed to have copies of not only the ones I had, which I did bring, but I also had to have mine, a copy of my lease. And I couldn't understand that because I thought they should have that at least. The other thing I did is I did similar to another speaker, is I went to the assessor's office to find out how much our taxes were, because you can't find out any of the costs without filing a lawsuit. So I went and found that out. It was $95,000 a year for the property. And that comes up to about, I want to say 6 weeks of the total rent. We have 82 homes in the park. The big question is on the partially the fair rent commissions and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And I think you're all aware that there's legislation going forward in regards to mobile home parks. And the fact that we live by a lease, what we're responsible for, and I think it's basically the same in every park. And we do our part to the best that we can, but yet the park owners aren't required to follow through on all the common area things that they're supposed to do. We've got 4 parks, and we've got two gentlemen that maintain all 4 parks. Take care of the plowing, any other issues that come up during that time. I think the main thing and the main point I wanted to get across is that the cost of what's happening, if you're trying to, and I heard someone speak of what the homes are worth that they're buying, they're getting this one price, and we don't know what the bottom end is, but to buy a home that costs $68,000 and you're going to pay $250-something thousand, that's another question. And the other question is too, we pay for the land only. We're responsible for our house and our upkeep. And for a long time, and thank goodness for fair rent commissions, because for a long time, the comparison of rents kept being compared to if you had an apartment. And it's not the same thing. It's totally different. So they're finally realizing that at the same time. I don't want to, but all I can do is echo everything that's been said so far, because we have the same issues, and we're getting to the point where we're going to be in a room like this pretty soon. Rent, I don't like to throw rent comparisons out there, but this is kind of important. We had a $40 increase this year. I don't want anybody to fall out of their chair when I tell you this, but our park is now at $867 a month. And we have no amenities. We have nothing. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a gazebo that'll hold 10 people. Okay. That's all I have. I just wanted to give our support in regards to what's happening here.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. Attorney Carroll, because I've overruled your objection, I will give you an opportunity to question him directly if you'd like to. Not necessary. Sir, before you go, does anyone on the commission have any questions for the witness? All right, thank you very much, sir. Chair recognizes the next witness.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for taking the time on Saturday to meet with all of us. My name is Sheila Ahern, and I live at 15 Country Club Trail. I've lived in Beechwood for 21 years. My biggest question is, I would like to know if the amount that has been stated being spent for repairs includes all the purchases that have had to be redone because of poor management decisions. Originally, there was a Beechwood Club. We collected the rental money for the clubhouse. This was used for cleaning the clubhouse, purchasing chairs and tables for the pool, the purchase of the pool table, and other essentials for our activities. When Sun took over, the management purchased new lounge chairs, not commercial grade, wrought iron tables and chairs, barrel chairs for inside, not taking into account that this is a 55 and older community, and all were useless. These have now been replaced other than the barrel chairs. The table in the library was removed and another table has been put in, but it had taken out and put in the garage. Why, I don't know. And outside the porch area, which is called, I can't remember what they call it, a pergola, right? Which doesn't look like that to me. Over the patio was constructed, and some blinds have been installed. However, they are dangerous, as they are not anchored and blow in the wind. And this is something that we've commented on to management over the last 3 years, and nothing gets done. My other concern was a section of one road was paved 1 year before they came through with the water company and tore everything up. Now, they knew when the water company was going to come through and do all this work. We can't plan properly to get things done in a manner so that you don't have the streets. Now, every day, we have to bump over these roads, and it looks unsightly. Money was spent behind the clubhouse last year or the year before for a patio that no one uses, and now I understand they want to put a pergola there. Perhaps it would be a good idea if the community was asked if this was something they wanted, instead of putting money forward and not using it for maintenance. Some of this stuff is just not of any good idea. Anyway, my point is, your mistakes are costing us in raised rent, and that I would like to see corrected. Think about what you do for a project before you spend the money. And I appreciate your listening to me. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Before you step down, are there any questions from the commission?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. My question is, and perhaps you might be able to answer this, does the Beechwood community have a organization, or are they organized with regard to their comments for improvements to the landlord?
We're never asked anything. I'm sorry, we're never asked anything. The decisions are made by corporate and the management. And those decisions should be part of our community. We're the ones that live there. We know what we use and what is good for us. And all of a sudden now, because of this, there's a few comments that are being listened to, but they hadn't been for a long time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ma'am? Miss?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. When were the roads torn up to put with the water company? Do you remember what year?
In the last 2 years.
Thank you.
And they never put in the lawns right or anything else, and we've had to redo everything that the water company did. And that's because nobody was following up with what the management should have done to see how this process was being done. That's the word I want. Thank you.
Any further questions from the commission? We're our most popular speaker so far.
So the community has no input with regard to any concerns for maintenance or programming. And when you do make a complaint, to whom do you make it?
The complaints are made to the management in Killingworth, and it gets put in as a document, whether it's a work order or whatever. But it really kind of goes or this way, in one ear and out the other.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further from the commission? All right. Chair recognizes the next complainant.
My name is Julianne Cataldo. I reside at 22 Whitewood Road, Killingworth, Connecticut. I began my residency at Beechwood originally in 2008 under the Jensen family ownership. I stayed for 6 years. I was relatively happy, and I moved out to help out a daughter. Ended up returning back in 2017. It was interesting. I was on the same road, just another bigger house. That's a total of about 15 years. So I've been here long enough to compare the Jensen's ownership to the son's ownership. In 2019, Jensen sold the park to Sun Communities Incorporated, which after a year or so began a new management trend to gradually shave the quality and amount of services that our land lease pays for while simultaneously increasing the land lease rent percentage well above the cost of living index. I would also like to note that from the chart that the percentage of increase was flexing up and down. I mean, one year I believe it was 7, then it went down to 5 or 4, and it's sort of hovered there. In the summer of 2022, after 3 years of this unfair trend, our residents united together and requested a grievance meeting with the Sun corporate manager, who was Brandon George, who came up. I think it's from Florida. During this meeting, Mr. George mainly defended his company's position and offered some solutions, tried to brainstorm some solutions for us that were struggling with the increases. And his solution quoted that, well, could people start seeking state and local assistance? Or perhaps people could go back to work in order to adjust to their rental rates. If you just go through the park, you're going to see many people with ramps, disability ramps. Many people, some are still working that are in their 50s or 60s. I was working up until my 70s, and a lot of them have disabilities as well. So that's really not a gracious solution. Many people, as I said, were already on assistance, while many were disabled and unable to work. Needless to say, there was little accomplished at this meeting, but it became apparent to the residents that Sun's priority was not their service to the residents, but to making a profit for their stockholders. Jensen's had a compassion. I mean, they kind of fluxed their increases. In a couple of years, we didn't have any because the Social Security didn't go up. So they held it. I can only conjecture that as a corporate manager, Mr. George must be aware of that affordable housing in Connecticut is greatly lacking, leaving the average resident in this park trapped with few options to move. And I've been checking places near New Haven, and it's just outrageous. And then the Evergreen Springs Park, just south of Beechwood, has been suffering unfair rent hikes for several years under another owner, which has been mentioned. They are consequently currently paid in the 800s, as he mentioned, a month. In order to sell their homes, they've had to lower their sale price considerably to compensate for the high rent costs. Henceforth, they're losing significant equity value of their homes. At the rate of this trend, we're looking at ourselves now. We likewise will be facing the same dilemma in the not so far future. Sun is using the same strategy as stated. I've done some research online of their history and so forth, but Sun is using the same strategy as stated in one of their financial reports. They have been boasting or touting of the high income gains that they are getting from mainly the rental fees, and in the same reports, they're touting of the low percentages of residents leaving their parks due to Sun's extraordinary management and superior premier quality of services. I say this sarcastically because that is not happening. That is not a true statement. That's coming out in their public reports. The following list, well, my claims. Anyway, truth be told, people are not moving out because of their great services, but because of the limited availability of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe we have a few questions for you. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the services and in what ways they're lacking?
Well, a lot has been mentioned, okay? For one thing, they plow the roads, okay? I'm looking at this from a regular house owner. I don't consider that a perk service. If we were in a regular house on a street, the town, our taxes would be paying for that service, okay? So this is not, to me, something extra. I mean, I know these are their roads. The tree issue has been, for trees that don't need to be removed, they don't even trim, what should be, even in some pruning issues. I have a lot of bushes on my house. I have a good-sized piece of property, and I love it. But I have a lot of bushes. When it started, they were doing all of the bushes in the perimeter, and the bushes along the roads, and the bushes that were separating our properties, okay? Now, they are only doing, each year they were trimming back more and more of what bushes they were going to trim. And sometimes we didn't find out until the guys were doing it. We're actually trimming them. And I have several along the roadside on the property. I just found out this year when I finally investigated my borders, I was told wrongly by a neighbor, but I had no blueprint, that I've been actually mowing more property on the lot next to me, and I was doing those bushes. The fact of we pay, we're paying as much as my brother's house and an acre of land in North Madison, which is prestigious. Our total is over $6,000 a year on land we don't own. And the fact that we have to provide all the mowing, the shoveling in regards to the driveways and so forth. We have to keep the bushes now all trimmed, and it's just added more and more.
I believe we have more questions, ma'am. Thank you.
When was the Brandon George meeting?
I believe it was in the summer of 2022, around there.
Any other questions from the commission?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Chair recognizes the next complainant.
My name is Kim Erickson, and I live at 20 Woodland Trail. And I moved into Beechwood in July of 2010. At that time, I put in a work order with Jensen's for all the overgrown bushes on my property to be removed. When Jensen's landscaper came, he said they would be removing all the bushes I requested except for the large fire bush and the large border bushes on the left side of my property. Because of the steep hill, he explained they could not be removed because as the roots died, erosion would occur. In 2018, new neighbors moved in, and he complained to me that the fire bush was blocking his view as he pulled out of the driveway, and I explained why that it could not be removed. He said he was going to go to the office to report that. I have no idea whether he did or not, but in the spring of 2019, I came home to find all those bushes removed and cut down. I believe my neighbor hired someone on his own to do the work, although I'm not certain. Soon after, Sun Communities purchased the property. My first correspondence I received from them about this was from Taylor Donajay, the new district manager, who told me she had someone drive by my house and everything looked fine. The next spring, I complained again because I saw the erosion beginning, and she sent someone over to pour soil and rocks on the hill and plant grass seed. During the first rain, it all washed away down the street. In September of 2023, which is when Brandon George had the corporate meeting, he came to my house with a group of other people, and I showed him the erosion, and I also at that time showed him in the back of my property where there's wetlands, that there's drains that were put in, and Jensen's used to empty them every year. He said he would get them cleaned right away, which has never happened. A few weeks later, he sent Mike Kane, the regional vice manager, to my home. He said that Sun will not pay for, never pays for retaining walls. Although a few months later, one was installed on my street by Sun. Mike said he would have the current landscaping supervisor come to my home because they could, he was a professional. He came to my house, his name was Rich, and he said the only way to protect the land truly is to put up a retaining wall, but since Sun refused, he would come do some landscaping to help stabilize the hill. Soon after that, he left the company. Then again, last July 25th, I was at a Sun community gathering where executives from the office came again. At that time, Mike Kane approached me and he said, I know we owe you landscaping. I will be at your house within 2 weeks to get things started. I'm still waiting, and in the meantime, the land on the side of my house is sloping and shrinking more. Since my home is older, I don't have a cement slab under my house. Now the front corner of my house is beginning to shift, and twice I've had to have a handyman come in and make repairs around my door frames and molding in that left corner bedroom. Obviously at my cost. But the most ironic thing is every spring, Sun inspects all of our properties and gives us lists of what has to be repaired. Last year, everyone was told they had to add mulch into their gardens, all at our own expenses. But one of my inspections, I was told they had to replace the roof on my shed because it was covered with moss. That cost me $800. Luckily, I was still working at the time. And I'm sure it grew because the drains that were never drained, my shed was laying in the dampness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Do we have questions from the commission? Thank you very much. The chair recognizes the next complainant.
Rebecca is also from another outside mobile home park community.
I am going to overrule the objection. I'm going to allow it. We're able to consider evidence of comparables and things like that. So I'm going to let it in. I will give the opportunity to cross-examine.
Thank you all for letting me speak today. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Connors, and I am here to represent myself as well as mobile home residents as a whole. I live in Rivermead North South, located in East Hartford, and I am here to speak with you all today to provide you a real-life example of how these situations left unaddressed are detrimental to current and future residents of all mobile home parks. We also used to be a family-owned park that ended up being sold to a large corporation. And in my time of living there, I have seen the rents go from the low 500 range now all the way into the 800s, along with a steep decline in our services. For reference, I moved in October of 2020, and on June 21st, 2021, we received notices that rents were increasing park-wide on August 1st. This is commonly done so that everyone in a park will receive increases at the same time, regardless of your initial move-in date. Before our corporate ownership, the rent was affordable and the residents were offered services that were reflective in that cost. Previous owners provided lawn care, snow removal, and general maintenance services, but most importantly, actually spoke with the residents. Now we are paying various rents, some of which will be nearing $900 in the next few years, and all that we have is trash removal, which we actually do pay taxes for through our town, unreliable park office staff, and subpar delayed snow removal. Additionally, residents are having to lower the price of their homes by $8,000 to $10,000 just to sell them. Currently, there is a house for sale listed at only $53,000, originally listed for $63,000, and that was over 2 months ago. As of today, the home is still not sold. I am sharing this with the committee to help provide you a testimony of what living under these types of large corporations is really looking like. In just a few short years, the residents here today will be under these same situations. Our park was bought by owners in 2016. That's just 3 years before Sun purchased Beechwood. And it provides you as an example of what will happen to these residents if a rent schedule that limits unfair increases on lot rent is not found to be fair today. This issue not only impacts the long-term residents, but also people who are searching for dwindling affordable housing in this state. But also all of these long-term residents who don't know any other place as their home. I know in my park we have residents who have been living in their home for longer than I've even been alive. And the thought of them having to choose between a rent they can't afford, moving away from their home, or God forbid even homelessness is devastating and should not be our only standard. Like Beechwood, many of our residents are senior citizens and saw this as an affordable place to retire and have less maintenance in a traditional home. However, due to profits taking priority over residents, that reality is turning into the past. Just this past winter in Rivermead, where I live, our residents' bills were $1,200 to $1,600, and that's just lot rent, water, gas, or propane. That does not include your electricity, taxes, insurance, or even a mortgage. I want to express to the committee that the fears the residents at Beechwood have are a reality, and they will come to fruition if action is not taken today. I urge the committee to consider the residents when coming to their decision, as they are the ones who are day-to-day lives are going to be impacted by these issues. Sun Communities as a company will not have to stress the impacts of their unfair rent increases paired with the continually declining services. I thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Council, do you have questions?
Just a few questions, and we'll have to sort of go back and forth with the mic. Would you mind just repeating what the current lot lease rent is for your community?
It varies. There's some people that pay $669 all the way up to $850, almost $900.
And does your community include a clubhouse amenity?
We have a single clubhouse that we have to pay for every time we rent it.
And does your community have a pool that you can use?
We have a pool across the street, but no, we do not.
Does your community offer bulk pickup as a service to its residents?
Through our taxes that we pay with the town, yes.
So that wasn't exactly my question. So, but the community itself does not offer you
They
those
offer the town to come in and do it, but no, they don't pay out of their own pocket for it.
And does your community offer leaf removal at the curb in the fall?
Through the town.
So the town provides that service? And how many full-time maintenance staff does your community have?
None really full-time. It depends. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, but we can wait 4 to 5 days to a week for a response from management.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Thank you very much. Chair recognizes the next complainant. Wait, could you state your name and tell us the residence before I...
My name is Dave Delory. I live at the Sun Community in Cedar Springs and Sullyton.
And where is that, sir?
Sullyton. I'm also the president of the Connecticut Manufactured Homeowners Alliance. We're a statewide organization recognized under Connecticut general statutes as advocates for mobile home park residents.
I am, if you have a basis for the objection, I'll hear it, but I'm inclined to allow it.
Other than not being a resident at this community, and that in general, to the extent that we continue to allow non-resident, non-complainant testimony, it sort of transforms the nature of the hearing into one where there is generalized public comment that otherwise would not be allowed.
I am going to allow it. Again, we can look at comps. It's a Sun community, so I'm going to allow it. I would ask, though, are there many other witnesses which are not residents? Would this be the final one? Okay, then I am going to allow, again, with a caveat, you may cross-examine. Please, if you could state your name again, and please proceed.
Dave Delory. I live at in the Sun Cedar Springs facility in Sullyton. As I stated earlier, I'm president of Connecticut Manufactured Homeowners Alliance, recognized in statute as a representative for mobile home park residents across the state. I'm here to support Beechwood residents in their effort to restrain land rents to keep their homes affordable. Beechwood, as you know, is a 55 restricted community where many residents are seniors, disabled, and are veterans of modest means living on fixed incomes who downsized to Beechwood anticipating a stable, affordable retirement. Unfortunately, as a result of compounded rent increases imposed since Sun Communities acquired Beechwood in 2019, residents now realize they will soon no longer be able to afford Beechwood and seek relief by the only option currently available, this fair rent commission. Residents recognize that Sun is a for-profit company that requires a fair return on investment, but we find the rent increases unjustified, the recent rent increases unjustified, and lack consideration for residents' ability to pay, a key factor the Fair Rent Commission must assess in these complaints. We also believe that Sun is better able to absorb the impact of ongoing inflation, especially since in 2024 it paid former CEO Gary Shipman $10 million in compensation, and in 2025 sold its Safe Harbor Marina portfolio for $5.65 billion with a reported profit of $1.3 billion. That's B, billion with a B. At that time, Sun board member Jeff Blau said sale of the marinas, quote, allows Sun to focus on our core businesses, which operate at high margins and produce durable income streams. Their remaining core businesses are manufactured home and RV parks. Meanwhile, this year, Sun increased land rates 4.7%. While that may not seem out of line until you realize it is 69% higher than the 2.8% increase residents received as part of their Social Security COLA, leaving residents with less than 1/3 of their COLA to pay for increases in all other living expenses. Under these circumstances, is it unreasonable to expect Sun and their shareholders to share some of the pain and tighten their belts a little so that seniors on fixed incomes can afford to stay in their homes over the long term? So far, the answer from management has been a firm no, which explains why this Fair Rent Commission has 190 complaints to consider, why there are 275 similar complaints from Sun competitor ELS Stonegate in Wyndham, and over 100 complaints from competitor RHP Rivermead in East Hartford. Further, in their discovery response, Sun offered comparable rents from RHP and Clinton. Those parks, along with ELS Stonegate Manor, charge the highest rents in Connecticut that we know of. Coincidentally, Sun Communities, RHP, ELS are all defendants in an ongoing nationwide class action lawsuit alleging, quote, a conspiracy to fix, raise, and systematically inflate manufactured home lot rents across the United States. That case is currently under consideration in the Chicago Federal Court, and one defendant has already settled. I'd like to offer an alternative rental comp from Colchester Commons, a 55 and over resident-owned community. In addition to the same amenities provided by Beechwood, residents there get their lawns mowed in summer and their driveways and walkways cleared of snow in winter, all for $480 a month. Finally, like many towns, other towns, Killington struggles to provide affordable housing. I argue that preserving the existing affordable housing should be the first step, and urge the Fair Rent Commission to use all available statutory options to fairly and equitably balance the interests of residents and the park owner while maintaining Beechwood as one of the few remaining sources of unsubsidized affordable housing in town. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll first give Attorney Carroll an opportunity if he has questions.
Good afternoon. Just one question. You just referenced a Colchester-based community. What was the name of that community?
Colchester Commons.
And isn't it true that that is a resident-owned community?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Thank you very much. I'll now open it up to the commission. Do commissioners have questions? All right, thank you very much, sir. Chair now recognizes the next complainant. All right, so the chair now recognizes, Attorney Carroll.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Wilson Carroll. I just have a few questions. I don't know who would be the best complainant to respond, but they are directed towards the nature of the joint representation of multiple people and by the representatives here today.
Two of us will be.
Okay. So the first question is, I know the gentleman who just spoke referenced that there are 190 complaints. Is that consistent with your understanding of the number of individual complainants in this matter?
Yes.
And I only just received the discovery responses from the complainants yesterday afternoon, but it seemed to me that the volume of those responses were not consistent with 190 individual complaints. Are you aware whether everyone who submitted a complaint responded in some manner to the discovery responses?
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So maybe I can make the question more specific. I saw in your discovery responses that there were some, for example, financial breakdowns of budgets for individual complainants, but there were not 190 of them. So
some of the people are still having their taxes done. Some of the
for the recording, or is it going to be?
Yeah, if we could pass the mic. I know it's going to be
Here, I can say that. We were not able to get all of them. Some of the seniors and stuff like that, the problem finding them. Some are still doing their tax returns. And also, when you go buy a Sun home or a community, you have to give all your financial information. So they have all our, and Brendan George is shaking his head, they have all our financial information for every resident who lives in a Sun home.
Okay, but isn't it true that, so what I'm showing you right now is the Fair Rent Commission's discovery request in this matter, is that accurate?
Got my glasses, I'm sorry.
No problem.
And what?
So under B, it says tenant production. Each tenant shall produce, and then among other things, evidence of alleged conditions, description of relief, lease agreements, rent payment history,
Well, lease agreements they have.
Okay, did they produce them in this proceeding?
No, not all, no.
Okay, and did every complainant submit rent payment history?
No, I said we weren't able to get it.
Has anyone provided photographic evidence of any of the alleged conditions of the premises?
We do have, Director Kim has photographed it. It's right here. Yes. And then there's other pictures we have seen.
Understood.
Like that.
So you have been designated as one of the representatives of all of the complainants, right?
Yes.
And did you receive individual authorization from each complainant to act as their representative?
The people who fill out the forms, yes.
Okay. And since not all of the leases, or perhaps no leases, have been provided through discovery to the commission, other than the model lease that we will produce
Which is
today.
and you have basically 3 leases. You have the Jensen lease.
Right, so this is my cross-examination, so there's no question pending.
Okay.
So can you at least represent that each of the 190 complainants has a current signed lease with Sun, which would be required to have standing in this proceeding?
Everybody who filled out a complaint had a lease. We made sure of that.
Okay. Are you aware
Excuse me just one second. There's a lot of chatter back there. It's very important we get this recorded. I ask people please to show the parties respect and make sure we get everything on the record. Excuse me, Attorney Carroll, please proceed.
I know that Sun Beechwood is a 55-plus community, but has evidence been submitted to the commission with respect to each complainant's age?
No, that was not asked. In the form that we were given, the town, I don't know if it was the commission who did the form or the town that did the form, but that age was not asked. But I do know, and Jackie, we can testify, everybody who filled out a form was 55 and over, that's for sure.
And with respect to any of the individual complainants, are you aware of any previous Fair Rent Commission proceeding involving Sun Beechwood that was filed by those complainants?
None.
No further questions.
All right, thank you very much. So at this point, we'll turn this over to landlord side, Attorney Carroll. Now's your opportunity to put on your case. Would it be helpful, Attorney Carroll, if we took a brief recess? And stuff? Would not be helpful. We've been about an hour and a half, if you don't mind. So I am going to call a brief recess. I don't want to interrupt your flow once you're done. So why don't we call it 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 2:37. I would remind commissioners not to discuss the merits of this hearing while we're off the record. So we are now in recess.
You know, you probably right here. I've lost her. She's good.
You what? Your phone?
Mr. First Selectman, is the audio recording still going, or has it been turned back on? Perfect. All right, if folks can take their seats, we'll get right back to it. All right, it is 2:46 p.m. We are now back in session. Chair recognizes Attorney Carroll.
Very good. For the record, again, Attorney Wilson Carroll of Cohen & Wolf on behalf of Sun Communities. So I'd like to start by handing out a number of documents, and I do have copies for at least a few of the complainants as well. The first is Sun's discovery production, which we already produced to the commission. The only difference is that I've added Bates numbers to this version so that as I refer to documents, or as Mr. Kane or Mr. George refers to documents, I can let the commission know what the Bates number is so that we can all follow along. The second packet is just photographs. The first section is photographs of Beechwood, and then there are photographs from about 4 or 5 other mobile home communities in Connecticut, primarily with respect to the condition of the roads. So I'll get to that once Mr. Kane testifies. And then finally, there's about 36 pages of additional materials that we'll be referencing, and those also have continuing Bates numbers just so that we can all follow along. And I'm going to start by inviting, after I pass everything out, I'll invite Mr. George up to the podium to give his presentation, which, if you'd like to follow along, there's sort of a PowerPoint in PDF form that is about 6 pages of one of these documents that I'm about to pass out.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon George, Division Vice President with Sun Communities. I've been with Sun for 15 years, and I am an individual member of a fantastic property management team with approximately 45 communities and approximately 225 team members located in Connecticut and Florida. Nearly all of these 45 properties are age-restricted, active 55-plus communities. These properties are not assisted living centers, and they are not government-subsidized senior housing either. Instead, they are a 55-plus housing option for those that want to live in an active community filled with people their own age and with the same interests. Our residents own their homes, maintain their home and home site, but lease the land that the home sits on. This is a great housing option for those that do not want the high cost of purchasing the land that comes with a traditional brick and mortar home. Instead, in their senior years, they can buy a new or pre-owned manufactured home without buying the land and save significant money. The offset of that is that they pay a monthly rental amount on the land, which includes the amenities and services at the community. The monthly rental rate goes up each year in a market rate adjustment. We can only raise the rent once per year in accordance with state statute. The lease agreement signed by the resident and the park owner is a contract originally approved by the state of Connecticut with clear and definable terms as outlined in the Connecticut Manufactured Housing Act, Statute 412. These rules clearly state the obligation of the community park owner and the obligation of the homeowner. There is a shared and balanced obligation in this contract. In short, the obligation of the community owner are to maintain the infrastructure, including roads, utilities, and amenities, and to provide for the services included in the rents charged. For Beechwood, this includes septic maintenance, snow removal from the main roads, fall leaf removal from the curbs, rubbish and recycling pickup, and tree trimming, among other services. Maintaining health and safety is a key component to the statute's requirements for the park owner. We are proud that we have recently passed our 2026 annual inspection with no violations or issues. The same is true for 2025. The resident's obligation is to pay their rent on time and to maintain their home to a community standard and follow the community rules. That standard is key to maintaining a community where every resident is proud to call their community home. We are proud to say that our residents do a great job maintaining their homes, and it's a team effort with our on-site management who do annual inspections to make sure everyone is keeping to the same standard. The site rent that our residents of Beechwood pay each month goes to maintain the property, pay for services and staffing, and to make continual improvements to the infrastructure and property. The amenities included in our site rent include a recently renovated clubhouse with fully equipped kitchen for resident parties and social events, a library, billiard table, outdoor barbecue area, and a swimming pool. Our clubhouse has a backup generator when power goes out. Most manufactured communities in Connecticut do not have any of these amenities, which makes it very challenging to compare Beechwood to any other community in Connecticut. Beechwood of Killingworth is the best manufactured community in the state, hands down. You can eat off the streets, they're that clean. We urge anyone in the area to tour other manufactured home communities in the area or in the state and compare that community to Beechwood. It's not even close. With all due respect to other park owners who do a great job for their properties and their residents. There are people in this audience that want to paint a picture of squalor for the residents of Beechwood. That picture is being painted by those that are promising residents lower rent and improved quality for this Beechwood community built in the 1960s. The infrastructure of Beechwood needs constant improvement and investment to protect the investment of the homeowners. Roads, septic maintenance and replacement, tree trimming, staffing, snow removal, and other operational requirements demand rents that keep up with what is required to maintain the community, not with some arbitrary connection to CPI. An example is the cost of replacing septic systems. In Connecticut, that cost is approximately $30,000 due to engineering, permitting, and install. In order to replace a home that becomes obsolete, a new septic is required, along with a 6-inch full concrete pad, new electrical pedestal, and new parking pad. The lot modification can range on the low end of $50,000 to as much as $90,000. Retaining walls can range anywhere from $16K to as much as $50K when and if they are required. We need site rent that is market rate adjusted to justify the investment to replace obsolete homes and also to make other critical investments. When you take away the ability of the park owner to justify the large expense to replace a home or resurface a roadway, then you begin a process of decline of the park. The organizers in this room who are pushing for rent caps with no change to investment and services are driving the community train into a mountain. With that said, for those residents who have very little in the way of savings and are living entirely on Social Security, we must have empathy and compassion for these people. The lack of savings can be from a loss of a spouse, or from a medical emergency, or a medical event, or a life change event. We owe it to these people to not let them fail. Government and social services need to step in so that seniors can live their senior years in dignity. We are in support of this and always will be. What is needed is not to put the burden for those who need more financial support than Social Security can provide on the manufactured home park owner who represents an extremely small part of housing provided to Connecticut residents. A 4.7% increase, or $27, is not unreasonable or unconscionable when you have CPI at nearly 3% and you are working hard to reinvest in the community's infrastructure and services, which some communities has done. I'd like to just talk about the P&L briefly. You were all given that as part of the discovery. Our MH income increased by 5.2% over the last 5 years, which is higher due to recent inflation. Sun is not immune to inflation. It affects us all. Our total operating expenses over that time as well increased 15.1%, friends. Payroll increased 11%. Utilities increased 9%. Supplies and repairs increased 21%. Legal and insurance increased 25%. Other expenses increased 43%. Sun's capital investment in this community over the last 5 years was $2.2 million. Beechwood, as mentioned, is best in class. Best in class in Killingworth, best in class in the Connecticut shoreline, and best in class statewide. There are cheaper MH communities to live in with basic features and more expensive MH communities. But But there are not better manufactured home communities to live in than Beechwood and Sun's other manufactured home properties in Connecticut. Sun's residents in this room know that, and so do other folks in this room who are not our residents. I would like to go over the comp list, and I'll be available for questions. Beechwood's site rent is $598. It includes septic, rubbish, recycling as services included in the rent. Its amenities, as I mentioned, clubhouse, swimming pool, and outdoor barbecue area. Evergreen Springs, 102 home sites. Clinton, Connecticut, all ages RHP property. Site rent, $939. Services included in the rent. Water, sewer, rubbish, and recycling. There are no amenities. Cedar Grove, 60 home sites in Clinton, Connecticut, all ages RHP property. Site rent, $922. Services included in the rent, water, sewer, rubbish, and recycling. Green Acres, 64 home sites, Westbrook, Connecticut, all ages RHP property. Site rent, $903. Services included in the rent, water, sewer, rubbish, and recycling. No amenities. Stonegate Manor, 339 home sites in North Windham, Connecticut, and all ages equity lifestyle properties community, with site rent at $800 a month. Services included in the rent, water, sewer, rubbish, recycling. The only amenity, a dog park. Highland Bluffs, 49 home sites in Branford, Connecticut, all ages RHP property. Site rent, $952 a month. Services included in the rent, water, sewer, rubbish, and recycling. No amenities. And lastly, Rivermead, north and south, 462 home sites in East Hartford, Connecticut, and all ages RHP property. Site rent, $776 per month. Services included in the rent is sewer. Amenities, a clubhouse, a laundry room with 1 washer and 1 dryer for 462 sites, and RV storage. Beechwood at $598 is $354 less than the highest on here, and is $178 less at the low end of our comps.
Thank you very much.
As part of Mr. George's presentation, I would just like to ask him a couple of questions that relate to the exhibits.
Sure. And then I will turn it over for Cross.
Thank you. So I just wanted to call the Commission's attention through Mr. George to a few of the documents that we passed out today. There was a market rate comparison. This is an orange spreadsheet that was Sun 3, but in the supplemental documents that I submitted today, there's an updated one. It's very similar, and it's at Sun 202. It's just updated to reflect the most current numbers, the 2026 numbers, but the comps are the same and the conclusions drawn from it are the same. Just a citation for the discussion of the profit and loss statements, those are at Sun 005, it's right at the beginning of our initial discovery production. But the numbers that Mr. George was referencing with respect to the overall increase in utility costs and staffing costs and other operational costs are all borne out by that spreadsheet. Mr. George, you touched briefly on the capital expenditures, but can you just reiterate, I know there was a comment from one of the complainants about whether the charge was like a $69,000 or so charge that was associated with, can you explain what goes into that charge and what that means?
Yes, so in the capital expenditure sheet that you have here, you'll see on there some numbers. It's 91, okay. Sun 91. You'll see on this BWD, which is the community's code, and then you'll see a number, which is usually the lot number 268. And this would be a mostly lot modifications to the home. When we sell a home, we of course sell the home, the resident pays for it. Everything that's basically above ground is sold to the resident. All of the lot modifications, new septic, concrete, driveway, sidewalks, those things are paid for by the community and are listed here as a capital improvement.
Thank you for that. I will turn the Commission's attention to Sun 204, which is it lists the brokered new and resident resales of units for the year of 2025. And Mr. George, I'll get you there as well. Can you explain what these two portions of the spreadsheet show?
So on the top, this is a combination of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 Sun brokered sales, which are basically consignment sales, brokered sales, and new home sales for 2025. Approximately, I believe there's 12 here. And you can see under the column final approved prices, the pricing of the sale prices of these homes.
And so, am I understanding correctly that this is a list essentially of the homes that that sold in the year 2025?
That is correct.
And is this number of overall home sales consistent with the average for yearly sales at Sun?
That is my understanding, the combination of both brokered and new home sales and then resident resales.
And you and I had a discussion with Mr. Bill Rafoul, who's the Senior Vice President of Community Investment and Construction at Sun. And he produced a document that I'd like to pass out regarding expense ratios and profit margins. If you could just take a look, then I'll ask you some questions once I've handed it out. So just a few notes here. So at the top is a spreadsheet that Mr. Rafoul prepared, which shows line items drawn from the profit and loss statements. And then there's two new rows called expense ratio and NOI margin. And I guess if you wouldn't mind reading into the record the text below the table, I think that would be helpful.
Note that Sun's profit and loss statements do not include general and administrative expenses, i.e. regional management, accounting, professional service, human resources, IT support, etc., which the company does not allocate to the property. A typical property of this size would pay 5% of revenue in management fees, which would cover things of this nature. Sun incurs actual G&A expenses of closer to 10% of revenue in actuality. If this 5% were added, it would bring Sun's expense ratio 2025 up to 49.3% and NOI margin down to 51.7%. Sun's profit and loss statements also do not include capital expenditures, debt service, and certain other non-operational costs. Small to mid-sized independent operators in this industry would typically have an expense ratio of 35 to 40% and a profit margin of 60 to 65%. Those percentage ranges were drawn from data published by the Institute of Real Estate Management and the Manufactured Housing Institute.
Thank you, Mr. George. And as I'm looking at the expense ratios and net operating income margins, profit margins for the last 5 years, it looks like, especially in the most recent 3 years, Sun's expense ratio, meaning the amount it expends compared to the amount that it earns, there are actually more expenses than the industry average, right?
That is correct.
And again, especially in the last 3 years, the profit margin, which according to the data that Mr. Rafoul cited, is typically in the 60 to 65 range, it looks to me like that's in the low to mid 50 in the last couple of years, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then one final thing I'd like to discuss before we turn it over to questions from the commission. There was a question from a commissioner earlier regarding tax reduction in a certain year as shown on our P&Ls. Can you just explain about that?
So my understanding is that there was a accrual that showed up on that spreadsheet. I do have copies of our tax bills that show that our tax bills have gone up. And I believe I have them over there and we can provide them.
Right, so this was sort of help me understand. It sounds like that was an entry on the spreadsheet that, I mean, why would there be a difference in the spreadsheet and the document that it will submit?
Yeah, I'm not on the accounting team for that particular. I'd have to look at the individual accrual and what happened with that, but that would be nice.
But the bottom line is that we'll submit a document to the record that shows what the actual taxes paid for that year were. There was no decrease, right?
That is correct. The taxes have gone up, and I'm sure members of the Killingworth community know that taxes generally don't go down, they go up, so ours have as well.
So that concludes my discussion with Mr. George, so I'll turn it over to the commission for questions.
Thank you, counsel. So the class representatives now have an opportunity to question the witness.
George. Thank you very much. I have a few questions. When you bought mobile home park here in Beechwood from Jensen family, it came with all those facilities. But you stopped doing retaining walls. But I will say, there was one that you did repair, I asked you, because he was a Vietnam vet in a wheelchair, and he was going to fall over and stuff like that. You fixed that, and you had that done in 2 weeks. But there's other people that have retaining walls that desperately we need them, and you refuse to do them. Now, I'd like to ask you, and the first time we met was after Senator Blumenthal came to Beechwood, and you said, and I've heard many people here in this community heard, that you put your shareholders first. Is that true or not true? Okay, all right, that's fine. I wanted to ask you, the Attorney General, William Tall, has never investigated another mobile home park except Beechwood. Do you know why he investigated Beechwood?
I will let you tell me why he investigated Beechwood.
Well, usually the Attorney General does not. No. I'm allowed to ask questions.
He has a right to voice an objection. The commission will.
So I have a general objection that this is in Mr. Joyce's entire presentation so far has been in the nature of testimony. I would just ask that he limit his cross-examination to questions of the witness.
I am inclined to sustain that objection. Mr. Joyce, please ask questions pointedly. We don't want a narrative here. We've had our opportunity to speak. You'll have additional opportunities to speak. Please ask him specific questions relative to the issues at hand.
All right. Since you took over from Jensen family, and I showed the graph, and you guys have gone up over 3.5% over what Jensen was, and you have a right to make a profit. I have no problem with that. We're not seeing all this money in the community, and we did not see any receipts at all when you handed in information to the committee and they gave it to us. There were no receipts, so we're taking your word, just like they have to take our word. Can we ask why there were no receipts?
We were told to provide the discovery documents that we were, so we did that. I don't believe there were any that were not asked that we did for. But I would just say, during that time, if you guys remember, we purchased Jensen in late October 2019. 5 months later, a once-in-a-generational pandemic happened, included following up with significant generational increases in inflation. We had to deal with that. The Jensens did not. If you look at what CPI was even several years beforehand. So when you're looking at what we've paid for, you're going to see it was all the operational needs of the community, which are in that document.
Okay. And I'm not an expert in law, so if I do step out of the boundaries, please let me know. But on the retaining walls, there's people that do need them. You didn't answer the question.
Thank you. As it relates to the retaining walls, not every home site requires a retention wall. And the Jensens did not install them on every home site. They installed them only on the home sites that were needing it. And Mike Kane can go into a little bit more detail with that as he worked for Jensens and for his son, and he can provide that. But where they're needed, we have installed them, especially on new homes, not just at Beechwood, but at other places. But just because a resident thinks they need a retaining wall doesn't mean that they do. In fact, 2 residents that I'm familiar with, one testified earlier, requested a retaining wall. We had an engineer, which we submitted in the discovery, that showed that the engineer said that they did not need a retaining wall. Happy to go into more detail about that.
Can I say something since that's my house? A question or not?
I think we need to take these in turn. So at this point, we're into cross-examination. They have a class representative cross-examining the witness specifically on the issues at hand. So I'm not going to take general comment at this time.
Do you know how many people receive social services in the Beechwood community? Okay. You know, you are right, there's a lot of mobile home parks here in Connecticut. I've been to a lot of them. Some are really bad, some are really good. But what we're seeing is the increase when it gets $800 and over, that people are sell their homes, but they're taking big losses, the equity. And personally, no one should be able to lose equity in their home and take it away. And none of us want to lose equity in our homes. So we want to slow it down to $800. And there is several mobile home parks that are over that. There's others that aren't. There's some very lovely mobile home parks that I've been private mobile home park owners that I've been to. They don't have a pool. I grant they don't have a pool, but some have clubhouses, they have barbecue areas, they have fields and stuff like that. So I feel that, you know, we all love the community, we all work and stuff like that in the community, we take care of our properties and stuff. But we also want to make sure we save the equity in our home. And your increases, you know, why are increases? Am I over?
Well, we have an.
Okay.
Well, I want to at least hear what the objection is.
Same objection, there's just been a lot of
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm inclined.
I just want to know, you know, why
Mr. Joyce,
come through.
we have to, just to give everyone an idea here. So what's happening here, and I know we're not all, it's not what we do every day, but we've had a witness testify. He's been directly examined by counsel. So now you're the class representative, you have an opportunity to ask questions, but the objections that keep being raised, I think, are reasonable in that it's not time for a narrative. You have an opportunity for a closing argument, so
Okay.
you're going to get to say what you want. So I will
Okay.
sustain the objection, and the questions need to be specific, and to the extent they can, let's keep them brief without.
Okay, I'm done for right now then. Thank you.
Thank you. Turn it back over to Attorney Carroll. Excuse me, the commission does have questions. One moment.
So, Mr. George, you gave us this, it's in various forms here, but if I'm reading this correctly, in 2021, your revenue was and just for this park, your revenue was 1.5 million and your profit was 965,000. Is that correct?
Can you repeat again? I'm sorry.
2021, you brought in 1.5 at Beechwood, and after expenses, your profit was 965,000. And in 2022, you brought in 1.6 million, and after expenses, your profit was 993,000.
That is correct.
In 2023, you brought in 1.7 million, and after expenses, your profit was 941,000.
Correct.
2024, you brought in 1.8, and after expenses, your profit was 975,000.
Correct.
And in 2025, you brought in 1.9 million. After expenses, your profit was 1,070,143.
NOI growth of 2.6%.
Is that correct? I'm sorry, go ahead.
NOI growth of 2.6% over that time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so as I understand our statute, we're not so much looking at percentages and things of that nature. We're looking at whether and the extent to which the income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in improvements to the accommodations. Now, I'm a poet, not a mathematician, but I see that we have 190 complaints, I think, at $27 a month times 12 would be right around $61,000. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
I don't, without having a calculator and figuring how you did that. I would just mention, though, on those NOI numbers, those do not include capital reinvestment, which was, again, 2.2 million over that time period. Those are not reflective in the P&Ls.
That's over 5, that's 2.2 million over 5 years.
Yes.
So if we look at 2025, what was your capital investment in 2025?
Hang on one second. 2025 was $243,000.
So that's going to take you to the something between $700,000 and $800,000 of profit still. Is that correct?
If you break it down that way.
Well, what way would you break it down?
I think you have investments that go I think you have a variety of investments that go on into these things, including lot mods and whatnot.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So you've given us these papers, which is awesome, but I don't know what else. I mean, I think this is what we're dealing with. You know, you've got $1 million of profit. Maybe if you want to take the $200,000 for capital investment off, I get it. And we're debating, you can do the math and see if I've got it wrong, but we're debating rental increases that might total $60-something thousand. How are you, is that needed is that $61,000 tax increase needed for the reinvestment given these profits we're talking about?
So I think you need to look at it also from the fact that we did not get Beechwood for free. There's debt service that's also a major.
Isn't that baked in already here?
Not in the P&Ls.
Why didn't you give us that information then?
That was what we were asked to give, the profit and loss statement.
Well, you got a profit and loss statement. I don't know what
They
else.
don't usually include debt service and those other fees that are part of that. This is simply
Well, we gotta decide.
operational revenue and operational expense. And we provided the CapEx that we've put back into it. But if you take the $27 and times it by 297 sites, there you go.
So not everyone filed a complaint, that's why I did the math my way.
Okay.
Understood. And if I can respond as well. So one thing to keep in mind, notwithstanding that capital expenditures are not included in profit and loss statements, debt service and other operational costs aren't necessarily on there. But if you look at the Sun 91 is the capital expenditure breakdown by year, there are years in which the capital expenditures were as much as close to $650,000. So you can't say that because 240 is the number for 1 year, that's all Sun needs. You have to respond to market pressures, and in certain years there are capital expenditures that are absolutely required and that need to be performed that aren't necessary on other years. So, that's an important part of the consideration as well. And I think that's the main focus of the expense ratio and profit margin sheet, is that there are rising cost pressures for everyone. Those include inflation and other factors. And when you look at the company's profit margins and their expense ratio, those are consistent with and below the industry average for this type of community. And you have to be able to provide also for uncertainty, so that if there is, God forbid, a disaster at the community that requires, like in 2023 or 2022, doubling or tripling of that capital expenditure, that's something that Beechwood can accommodate.
So if I understood the answers, the piece of information that we may not have, whether we ask for it or not, the piece of information we may not have would be the debt service number. Otherwise, we have everything, is that right?
Yes, I think debt service is...
So what's the debt service number?
We would be happy to provide a more specific breakdown of that to the extent that the commission is...
Do you have an idea? There's no idea, you have no idea what it is. Okay.
No, these two witnesses are not, accountants, so we would have to go further into that, but that's something we can certainly provide.
Just curious, can you tell me what a share is worth today for Sun?
I could tell you, $126.55.
I can go better than that. It's $134. Can you tell me what the dividend is for the shareholders?
No, I don't have that information today.
I do.
What I will tell you is that we responded specifically to the discovery request that the commission asked for, and when we responded, I said if the commission would like to see any additional information or has any questions in advance of the hearing, to let me know. And I've received no such correspondence. So To the extent that there is an information that you think is critical to your determination of whether this charge is fair and equitable, which is, or harsh and unconscionable, which is what the commission is charged with determining. We gave the commission an opportunity to tell us those in advance, and I'm more than happy to supplement with those if you think it's material to your decision.
Well, I think it is, for perspective purposes. So the dividend that is received by your shareholders is somewhere up between 3 and 4%. And the letter that you put out to the folks here for the increase indicated that you had to protect your shareholders. I think they're doing fine.
A publicly traded companies have a fiduciary obligation to act in the best interests of their shareholders. That's not unique to Sun, that's the law in the state of Connecticut. So to the extent that there is a concern with how that's being done or with a statement that may have been made years ago, I mean, that's the law in Connecticut. A corporation has a legal duty to act in the best interests of its shareholders. Sun, in practice, also acts in the best interests of its community members. And we'll hear a lot more of that when we get to Mr. Gaines' testimony, which concerns more specifically what's happening on the ground at Beechwood. But I don't think there is a relationship between the amount of dividend or the share price and whether under these particular facts and circumstances, this proposed rent increase is fair and equitable.
Did Sun develop a business plan when they purchased Beechwood?
What do you mean by that?
Well, usually a business plan is submitted to the board of directors, deciding whether or not the purchase of a property is viable and what that plan is for that property for the future. And it usually will offer a first year, 3-year, 5-year look for in terms of what the property will be able to offer the corporation. Also, I didn't see that in any of this material. And I also didn't see a full lease agreement. But what I did see is that on May 1st, the extensions had to be signed. Well, we're here deciding whether or not that's really a fair number, considering that we're all here trying to figure out whether or not the $27 increase is a viable increase.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a question there, but we are not, our team here today are not part of the acquisitions team that does that kind of work.
Well, I thank you for that, but it's part of my perspective, how I can define whether I am making a good decision in terms of how the property was defined to its board and its stockholders. Because if it's not a profitable situation, then it would be a fail. But obviously, it is a profitable situation, so it's not a fail. And it's profitable on the backs of these increases. And these increases are substantial. $117 in increase in the period from 22 to what you're proposing this year to 26. I'm going to tell you, I did read all of the complaints. And I did see the complaints that listed what their expenditures were. We have folks here who are getting $15,000 a year from Social Security. That's what they're living on. Up to about $34,000. Nobody's getting rich in Beechwood, except Sun.
Okay. For the record, Wilson Carroll, there was no question there. I have two responses. One is that there is now a full lease in the record. It was in the supplemental materials at Sun 216.
It would have been helpful to have a table of
Yes, it would have.
Well, let me just intervene. I don't mean to inconvenience either one of you, but to my fellow commission members, we do need to limit this to questions and allow questions to be answered.
The other point I'd like to make in response is that I'm reviewing the 13 factors in Connecticut General Statute 7-148C. None of them are what the share price is, what the dividends is, even what the profits are. The only relevant factor, even tangentially relevant, is number 13, whether and the extent to which the income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in improvements to the accommodations, which is just one of those 13 factors, and you can decide how important it is. But this doesn't say, for example, the chairman went through them at the beginning, and I can do so again, but the focus of this proceeding is on the factors in Connecticut General Statute 7-148C. Those factors are overwhelmingly concerned with the state of the community, the rents charged compared to other comparable communities, sanitary conditions, services, size and furnishings, and equipment supplied, size and number of bedrooms, whether repairs are needed, the amount of taxes and overhead expenses, whether the accommodations are in compliance with town ordinances and general statutes, the income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations, the availability of utilities, damages done to the premises by the tenant, the amount and frequency of increases to the rental charges, and then the last, whether and the extent to which the rental charges will be reinvested. None of the concerns that you were referencing with respect to the overall profits, the dividends, the shareholders are even within your statutory authority in this proceeding.
Thank you for that. But I do want to make sure you understand, with regard to my research, that perspective is very important to our community, especially when our community takes care of each other.
I have a couple questions for this young man right here. You said that the sewers are part of the expenses, correct?
Correct. There's regular reoccurring
Yet when I go
expenses.
through this, I see septic tanks. Is it sewer or septic?
Septic. Yeah.
So then why would you bring up sewer?
Just nomenclature, yeah, just how we consider it is a sewer system, but it is septic, so.
Well, it's A or B?
It is
Sewer
a septic,
or a septic?
it is a septic system, just to be clear. Mike can
That's what- and then
also
you
reaffirm
said,
that.
and I'm going to quote you, that you had significant inflation. Is that correct?
It's clearly defined. I think everyone knows the inflation we've seen over the last 5 years, absolutely.
Okay. So with this significant inflation, you're passing it on to the renter.
Just like any business would, we have to make market adjustments based on what's happening in the economy.
How many years, sir, has, I don't know, but how many years has Sun been in business?
I believe we started in 1976, and I believe we went public in 1993.
So 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever started a program where you give back to the community or help people by not raising their rent after a certain time, or?
I couldn't answer that based on the very general premise of that question. What I will tell you, though, we have a very vigorous Sun Unity program in our company, and we give back in volunteer hours and donations to charities throughout the United States and in the areas where we operate. And we also contribute resident relation funds to our properties to help with resident events and parties and whatnot. And we supplement that as just a couple of examples.
Okay, so in essence, sir, you have no program to help stabilize or subsidize the elderly in your community to help them balance their financial discord or problems, however you want to word it.
We have a fair housing thing that we have to adhere to. Every resident needs to be charged the exact same amount for the classification of site that they're at. And the state of Connecticut requires that.
And we will agree that Beechwood is a tiny speck in the Sun conglomerate, correct?
It is one of 15 communities in Connecticut, sir.
How many communities does Sun have?
I couldn't give you the exact amount, but if you put RV resorts together, you're probably in the 500 range.
What's the annual profit for Sun?
I don't have that information here with me.
Thank you.
Anything further from the commission? Yeah, one more.
So with your requested rent, $27 a month times whatever, however you're going to do that, what is your plan to reinvest that into improvements to the park?
So every year we get a certain CapEx dollar amount that we plan for. Some things are unplanned for. I know because of the heavy amount of snow that happened in Connecticut this last season, we have road work that's already been signed contract, roughly $50,000. So we're already contributing half of the rent increase into our roads program to fix those areas, including resident driveways. That's for 2026.
If in its deliberations, whatever decision is made, if it's determined, for instance, that there's some conclusion where the rental increase is not allowed to the full extent you're asking for it, would you still be able to do that work based on the profit and loss you and I discussed earlier, or you won't be able to do that?
So this road project will go through regardless, but I will have to look at the other projects and I will have to make adjustments. There's no doubt about that. And I could make one real quick comment. I'm sorry, because there was a discussion about the staffing level at Beechwood. Prior to Sun's ownership, there were 4 maintenance people that were at the property, and they covered the district. There were 4 properties. Mike Kane can go into more detail about that. When Sun purchased it, and there were, just to be clear, there was no community office at this community, no community manager. If somebody had an issue at Beechwood, they would call a phone number to the office of the Jensens in Southington, 50 miles or so away. When Sun purchased the property, we installed a community office that it never had before. We installed a community manager, an office coordinator, and most recently, D-District. So Beechwood is a standalone community. It is not part of a district anymore. There are 4 full-time team members that are there to manage that community. So I just want to make sure we're clearing this up for the committee.
Are there any other questions on this point or for this witness from the commission?
Thank you. So before I call Mike Kane as my next witness, just because the consumer price index has been spoken about a lot, I do have a handout that I'd like to circulate based on my research about the consumer price index that I'll reference later, but I'll hand it out. And just a few points about this document. I made a couple highlights on it. There's a bunch of different ways you can consider consumer price index, so there's different benchmarks that you can use that might reach slightly different numbers. But the most recent data that's come out month by month for the Northeast is in March 2026. So when I talk about the past year's consumer price index increases, I'm going to be referring to March, essentially. If you turn to the second page of this document, it just defines that the Northeast region includes Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, and a few other states. And if you flip to the fourth page, I highlighted a portion of a column, which I think is the most relevant here. So this is the percent change from 12 months ago by March. So basically it goes March 2022 to March 2023 to March 2024 through 2026. And you'll see that over the last year, there's been 3.6% essentially inflation, CPI. Then going backwards, it goes 3.2, 3.4, 4.3, and then as much as 7.3 in 2022. So I just wanted to submit that for the record so that we can all be at least discussing apples to apples. And with that, I'm going to ask some questions to Mr. Kane. Mr. Kane, what is your position at Sun Communities?
I'm sorry, can we put his name on the record, please?
What's your name, sir?
Mike Kane. I'm RVP, or Regional Vice President for Sun Communities.
And how long have you worked for Sun Communities?
I started working for Sun in October of 2019. And prior to that, I worked for the Jensens since February of 1991. I became operations manager in 1998, and that's when I started to oversee the properties in Connecticut, including Beechwood.
Thank you. So I have broken down these questions by category, and the categories are drawn from the complaints. So, Mr. Kane, as a person who's been at the property since when Jensen's was operating it, you are familiar with the current operations as well as the operations of Jensen, is that right?
Yes.
And so the first issue that some complainants have identified is issues in maintenance staffing. And can you speak to the way that Sun is currently staffed? I know Mr. George touched on this briefly, but can you just give us your perspective on what's happening currently and then compare that to when Jensen's owned the property?
Certainly. Sun Beechwood has 4 full-time team members to support 297 home sites. There's a full-time manager, full-time office coordinator, and 2 full-time maintenance techs. The 2 full-time maintenance techs has been since January. If we have a team vacancy due to turnover, Sun Beechwood has hired temp help to fill the gap between permanent and full-time staff. Beechwood was redistricted in 2025 from 3 other Sun communities along the shore. Previous to redistricting in 2025, Beechwood was managed as a district which included 3 other Sun communities. Previous to redistricting, Beechwood had 3 maintenance employees that covered 520 sites. After redistricting, Beechwood has 2 full-time maintenance employees, and now Beechwood operates as a standalone community with 4 full-time staff.
Thank you. So the next service that the complainants have brought up is bulk pickup. Can you speak to the bulk pickup situation at Beechwood?
Bulk pickup is offered as a courtesy to residents. It is not mandatory, and it's intended to coincide with the annual home site inspections. The number and amount of bulk pickup events is at the discretion of community management.
And throughout my discussions with you, in response to these complaints, has Sun Beechwood management committed to increasing the number of bulk pickups back to 2 per year?
Yes, we have. Sun Beechwood management has agreed to offer 2 separate bulk pickup events in Beechwood in 2026 and forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. The next area that was raised as a maintenance issue was snow removal. Can you speak to how snow removal is managed at Beechwood?
Snow removal from resident sidewalks, walkways, vehicles, and driveways is the responsibility of residents, according to the lease agreement. This has not changed from previous community ownership. There were several large snowstorms from the recent winter. In times of heavy snowfall, Sun Beechwood employees have helped to clear snow in front of mailboxes and from the ends of driveways. However, this is done at the discretion of Sun Beechwood management and not obligatory on the part of Sun Beechwood.
And can you address street plowing and the allegations that this leaves driveways blocked?
Fundamental fact of snow plowing is that when the snowplow operator is clearing snow from the roads, the snow is pushed to the sides in one continuous motion. Plow operators cannot avoid pushing snow towards driveways because driveways run along the side of the roads. Beechwood snow removal vendors are not responsible for clearing individual driveway openings. During the winter of 25-26 in Connecticut, including Beechwood, we had several large snowstorms, and by February it became difficult to find places to put the snow. Beechwood snow removal vendor has plowed snow as it has always been done. Snow plowing quality is subject to weather conditions and limitations of what a community snowplow can do.
It has been brought up that the pool was not cleaned daily. Can you talk about how the pool operates and is cleaned?
Our management protocol is to clean the Beechwood pool every day. This does not mean that the pool will remain completely dirt or leaf-free for the entire day. As a general practice, pool is cleaned every day. However, circumstances such as weather conditions or community emergencies may prevent the Beechwood maintenance team from cleaning the pool on a particular day. The Beechwood maintenance team will all have taken the CPO course, which is Certified Pool Operator. During times of PTO or paid time off or other employee absences, Beechwood has used maintenance employees from other Sun communities in Connecticut to cover the Beechwood pool maintenance. Beechwood has also used the local pool company, Davis Pools in Clinton, to assist whenever there was an absence on the Beechwood maintenance team.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. So I want to talk about septic expenses and septic pumping. And I'll just preface by saying that I've represented Sun Beechwood for several years now, including throughout the time when there was a similar, much smaller, but similar contingent of Beechwood residents who filed complaints with the Department of Consumer Protection with respect to the frequency with which the septic systems were pumped. And I represented Sun throughout that process. And I believe there was a comment earlier about that it was unresolved, but I've included in the packet that I gave to you today an email exchange between me and Attorney General Sandra Arenas, who was primarily involved with that septic inquiry. There was no finding of wrongdoing. We fully complied with that inquiry, and that the inquiry was dismissed. So it's not that it was unresolved, it's that there was no finding of wrongdoing and it is now closed. So that email exchange is at Sun 205. And there is a spreadsheet of the septic repairs at Sun that's base stamped Sun 63. But can you describe in general, Mr. Kane, how Sun Beechwood handles septic pumping and septic replacement and service?
Septic tanks in Beechwood are cleaned every 4 years. There has been a rumor circulating among Beechwood residents that under Jensen's ownership, the septic tanks were pumped every 3 years. This is not accurate. Jensen's had a 4-year pumping schedule of Beechwood septic tanks. The town of Killingworth Health Department recommends that septic tanks be cleaned once every 5 years. In 22-23, there was a Connecticut DCP inquiry and Beechwood's management of this individual septic systems. Sun Beechwood management responded to each complaint and cooperated fully with the inquiry. The inquiry was dismissed and Beechwood was found to have no wrongdoing. If a septic system is determined to be failing, it will be pumped as needed until the system is designed and approved by Connecticut DEP. It can take several months to obtain Connecticut DEP approval of a septic system.
Okay, and so I've pulled up for us to both look at, this is Sun 205, this is my email exchange with Assistant Attorney General Sandra Arenas. And just for the record, I emailed her, this is at the bottom of Sun 205. Good afternoon, hope this email finds you well. Our understanding from speaking with the Department of Consumer Protection is that there are no active septic complaints or inquiries with respect to Sun Beechwood. They recommended that I reach out to you to confirm that your office's septic inquiry has been officially closed. And she responded, good evening, Wilson, all is well, hope all is well with you too. Our septic inquiry has been officially closed. And then a few pages later in the documents we produced today, this is at Sun 208. This is from the Killingworth Code of Ordinances, section 445-20, and it's titled Maintenance of Existing Systems. Mr. King, can you just read that first sentence under subsection A?
All septic tanks, cesspools, and similar receptacles serving on-site sewage disposal systems located within the town shall be pumped out no less than once in every 5-year period.
Thank you. And so it's your testimony today that Sun is currently on a 4-year pumping schedule?
That's correct.
And that's the same 4-year schedule that Jensen's used throughout your employment there?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, let's turn now to retaining walls. We've heard a little bit about retaining walls today. What is Sun Beechwood's procedure for when a resident requests a retaining wall to be installed at their property?
Oftentimes we'll look at it and try to make a determination on whether it needs a retaining wall or not. If we're in doubt or if we need a professional assessment, we have hired an engineer. I am aware in 2023 that Sun Beechwood hired a local civil engineer, Indigo Land Design, and professional engineer Joe Wren evaluated 2 banks or berms at both 10 Woodland and 20 Woodland to determine if retaining walls were necessary. Indigo Land Design engineer Joe Wren, his written assessment of both addresses indicated that a retaining wall was not needed at both locations.
And were those locations 10 and 20 Woodland Trail?
That's correct.
And one of those addresses is the address of one of the complainants who testified today about the retaining wall, right?
Correct.
Okay, so at the letter from Indigo Land Design that Mr. Kane referenced is in our supplemental production at Sun 211. And I'm looking at his conclusion. This is Joe Wren's conclusion on Sun 215. Can you just read that conclusion paragraph, Mr. King?
In summary, based on field observations on the date of the inspection, the eastern slope areas on both 10 and 20 Woodland Trail appear to be stable and retaining walls do not appear to be warranted or required at either site. Minor landscaping and fencing along each slope may be implemented if so desired.
And are there any current requests for retaining walls that you're aware of at Sun Beechwood?
I am aware of a request from 16 Woodland, and it is my understanding that our community manager, Kimberly Lombard, has reached an agreement with the resident, and we intend to maintain that bank and also plant some shrubs.
Thank you. Let's turn now to roads. So there is the packet full of pictures that I circulated to the commission. The first set is for Beechwood, and then there's some comparisons later on. But can you explain in general the condition of the roads at Beechwood and why they are in that condition?
Yeah, Connecticut Water owns and maintains our water distribution system. And over the last few years, they installed a water main, a brand new water main in the roads. And in the process of installing that water main, they cut trenches in the road and then backfilled and trench paved obviously where the trenches were. I think there was a concern that there is a difference in color between the darker, newer asphalt in the trench and the lighter, older asphalt on the sides of the roads. However, we know that it was professionally paved and it was paid for by Connecticut Water. We know that the seams between the trench paving and the original road are smooth and flush. What I believe is described as poor condition may be referring to the difference in the color of the asphalt between the water main trenches and the older asphalt on the edges of the roads. As Brandon also mentioned, Sun has signed a contract of $48,000 this spring to repair Beechwood roads at the entrances and other locations that were damaged by winter plowing.
Thank you for that. In your opinion, and I know you either reviewed or took most of the photos that were in the presentation today, can you give a general comparison of the condition of the roads as compared to the other communities that you photographed?
Yes, I would say my opinion is simply that the roads in Beechwood, although there are different colors of asphalt, I believe they're safe, I believe they're in good condition, and any areas that are in less than good condition, we have made an arrangement to have those areas repaired. When I compare them to the other communities that I looked at over the past week or two, I would say that the roads in Beechwood are superior to all those other roads in the other communities.
So just a few more categories, and I think the commission for your patience. But tree and bush maintenance, can you describe how that was performed when Jensen owned the property, how it's performed now, and whether and the extent to which it's required by the lease?
When Jensen owned Beechwood, Jensen's would trim lot line shrubs, which was required by statute, and the shrubs around the homes at Jensen's discretion. This was not obligatory by the community owner. When Sun acquired Beechwood in 2019, a decision was made to discontinue trimming shrubs around the homes because many of these shrubs were planted and being maintained by residents. Many of the shrubs around the homes were planted in the process of replacing the manufactured home. However, there are also many shrubs around the homes that were planted by residents after they purchased the home. Now, when Sun replaces a home, we also replace the shrubs at the lot line and what I refer to as 3 to 6 foundation shrubs that were planted for each new home. Currently, we are not trimming the shrubs that are around the homes. We are simply trimming the shrubs on the lot line.
Can you just generally describe which yard maintenance responsibilities are the residents under the lease, in which are sons?
Under the lease, the residents are responsible for mowing and fertilizing their lawns, and they're also responsible for any pickup of leaves on their site. However, as it's been mentioned before, we do remove the leaves at the curb in the fall. I will say that shrub trimming is not specifically mentioned in the lease. However, it is not. It is also part of yard maintenance. We consider it part of yard maintenance and the responsibility of the residents.
And has that, okay, I'll leave it there on that one. Skipping around just a little bit from our outline here, but are you aware of any, I'll start this way. Can you describe the annual inspection process that Sun undergoes?
Yes. Every year, Sun personnel will go around each home, and we do what's called a four-sided inspection. We're looking at things like overall appearance, to see if the home needs to be washed, if there's areas that need to be painted or cleaned up. Oftentimes, we find that there's a frequent item that we find on the inspection is that there's clutter around, whether it's in back of the shed or around the home. And as I mentioned before, that's one of the reasons that we offer the discretionary bulky pickup.
And just to reiterate, you're committing, on the record, your sworn testimony that Sun Management has decided to increase that back to the 2 times per year bulk pickup.
Absolutely.
And now, with respect to the Department of Consumer Protection's inspections, there are 2, I believe, that we've submitted in the record that are the inspectors, Mr. Keith Lombardi. Was Sun found to have any violations in the reports that we submitted into the record?
There were no violations.
Okay. Lastly, the last category of the complainant's concern that I identified is the community communication, and in particular, a newsletter. Can you speak to that?
This is the Beechwood Residents newsletter we're referring to. And I would say simply this, that Sun Property Management Software has a resident communication feature which allows Sun to send out updates via text or email. We understand that not everybody has email, but not everybody has computers. So when we generate a communication by email or text, our software also identifies those residents that do not have an email address. And we have, when it's our flyer, our information, we have distributed it in person to, right now, we have 24 total residents that do not have email or I should say an email address. So we have agreed to deliver in person not only our information, but as a courtesy, the Sun Beechwood team will distribute the newsletter by hand to the 24 residents that do not have email. In addition to that, Sun will also print several copies of the newsletter and leave them at the clubhouse.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions for Mr. Dean at this time.
Thank you. I'll now give the tenants to the representatives an opportunity to question the witness. I'll remind, please keep these to questions rather than narratives.
Mike, how you doing?
Good.
Good. All right.
Need you on the mic.
A question. Can Sun hire contractors to go on people's property or the residents' property, or your Sun's property, to do work on the homes if it's not up to snuff?
As the rental agreement states, if the resident does not, for example, cut their grass, we can hire someone to cut the grass and then bill their account.
Okay. Do you give them how much that will cost?
We generally will invoice them from whatever we hire a third-party vendor to do that, and whatever that invoice amount is, that's what we charge. We do not mark it up. It's straight from whatever the invoice price is.
Okay. And that includes power washing, things like that, say a senior can't get to their home, that you write up and they can't do it, you'd hire a contractor to power wash their house, right?
No, we haven't done that in the past. And I don't believe the current lease allows us to do work on the home itself. So we will, what we call do and build a resident for work on the home site. But in my experience, we haven't billed residents for things like power washing.
Okay. I wanted to ask you this too. Are you aware that the hired contractor that you guys hired on a home, the lady's name is Jennifer, an 8 Boulder, that it was okay to have her air ducts on the foundation? And do you know that is a violation of federal law?
I'll have to step in on this one because I am aware that there is a lawsuit pending that arguably or explicitly encompasses those issues, so I don't think it's appropriate for him to be opining about the requirements of the law in this context.
But you can hire your own contractor to see that. So and that person, if they hire an independent contractor.
Residents can hire their own contractor without Sun's approval.
Right.
If that's the question you're asking.
Okay. But you'll hire your own contractor to go through the house and inspect it and say if it's okay.
Well, if you're referring to a new home, yes, we hire our own contractors to do the site work, not only site work, but the setup work on new homes, yes, and warranty work.
Okay. So, all right. And one thing about maintenance people, and you've seen stuff like that. Now we're down to 1. There was 2. But we talked to several of the maintenance people that worked for Sun at Beechwood. And they said, like I said earlier, that there were 6 in the summertime. 2 basically were Jensen's children. And then there were other 4, but they did move 2 around 2 days a week to the different communities because they didn't need that much work. But he said there are always at least 4 people 3 days a week during the summertime.
What I would say to that is the fact that when we managed Beechwood under Jensen's ownership, we managed it with 3 additional communities. And there were 4 full-time maintenance employees in Beechwood that took care of those 4 communities, which was approximately 520 sites. We have a different management plan. Sun has a different management plan, and that is what I've stated previously. We have a full-time community manager, we have a full-time office coordinator, and we have 2 full-time maintenance techs. I would agree that we have had a lot of turnover on our maintenance team. There's no question. But whenever there's turnover, whenever there's a vacancy, we first try to fill the gap with our own team members from other areas. For example, we have another district on the shore in Grove Beach, and there's another maintenance team member there. Or we'll try to assist from Southington, or we've even tried to assist from the team in Montville. We've also used temp agencies to have temp help come in to fill the gap when we have a vacancy. Admittedly, having a temp person there is not a long-term solution, but we have done what we feel, to try to fill the gap. We understand that there is turnover, and we do have to make adjustments for that.
Okay, on the pool, state law, that if the pool is cleaned or shocked, there must be a book where they write in the book, in the code and stuff like that. Did you bring the book here at all today to show people from last year? Okay, can we ask?
No, I don't have the pool tracking book.
Do you know where it is? Can we be able to see from last year's book?
Yes, it should be. I don't know specifically, but it should be in the shed. We have a shed there that houses the filter and also the chlorine, so it should be in there.
All right, so I can ask Kimberly Monday to go with her or take a look, see if the book is there?
Yes.
All right, thank you. There is one other question, unfortunately, I can't think right. Oh, when it comes to septic tanks, you said Jensen was every 4 years. Now, I remember when Sun first took over, they went to pumping every 5 years. Then Nancy Gorski stepped in, negotiated with you guys, and moved it to every 4. I have many, many residents, and I remember, that said they would be pumped every 3 years.
Now, I can tell you without question that our practice, when it was owned by Jensen's, was to pump the tanks in Beechwood every 4 years. Whenever it was more frequent than that, there were seasonal differences in the water table that sometimes required us to pump tanks more than every 4 years. But that was based on seasonal conditions. It wasn't a regular practice. And we have I think it's part of our support documents that shows, we carefully monitor the septic pumping. And I would also say that whenever a septic is considered to be failing, it's a decision that is not only made by our septic pumper, but he also consults with the town's health department to determine if a septic is failing. Right now, I'm aware that one septic system is failing, and we just recently got DEP approval to replace that system.
And that is, let's see. Yeah, there is a document in the supplement materials confirming that.
Yes. When someone comes to you, complains about their septic tank, needs to be done, how quickly do you jump on that?
Well, I mean, it oftentimes happens on the weekend, I can tell you. And we do have an answering service. And we will respond to it as soon as possible, usually within the hour. I would say that certainly during work hours, during the week, we can respond to it virtually immediately. Just because there's a issue with the tank does not mean that the system has to be replaced.
Okay.
But we do respond as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Can you just explain again how the health department permitting process works in terms of the timeline for replacing the septic system?
Yeah, it usually, you may not know this, not many people in the room here may realize that we need Connecticut DEP approval for all new septic systems. And that approval process can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Kimberly might have a little better remembrance on this one at 33 Woodland, but I believe that took at least 4 months for approval. So 5 months, thank you.
That's all from me.
Do the commissioners have questions for the witness? All right, there'll be no questions. Let me move on.
Let me just review my notes for a moment, but I think we are complete. I think before I actually close, I just want to turn the Commission's attention to Sum 202 and 203. So this is the updated orange market rent comparison survey, as well as a table on the right with just more comparisons of different communities, because this is directly one of the factors that the Commission is charged with considering. And I just want to call attention to these numbers. I mean, again, Beechwood, the total proposed new rent would be $598, and as you go down the list, you'll see $932, $922, $903, $750. I mean, to get to one where it's significantly lower, you have to get to Colchester, which, again, the gentleman testified as a resident-owned community, so it's very, not really comparable in that sense. But I can't highlight enough the importance of this document to the Commission's consideration, because these are the communities to which Sun is compared. And I will also note for the record that there was a fair rent commission proceeding regarding Stonegate in Wyndham, which you may be familiar with, and one of Sun's other communities, Rolling Hills, with a similar total lot lease rent amount, was referenced by that commission as one of their comparables in lowering their very high amount. So some communities in Connecticut have been used as a benchmark to show what a fair and equitable rent amount can be. So with that, I will rest my case, so to speak, unless you have more questions.
I believe we have a question.
So I understand we're going to sort of not take into account Colchester Commons so much because it's a resident-owned park, I think is how you're describing it.
Right.
But why it's significantly lower than everything? Why is that? Why is it so much cheaper if it's a resident-owned as opposed to, I guess, corporate-owned or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main reasons is because a resident-owned community has no legal obligation to its shareholders. There are no shareholders. So, and I'm going off the top of my head, but I believe that the mobile home statute has a procedure by which residents can purchase a park under certain circumstances, if that's, I don't know the extent to which that occurred at that particular location in Colchester, but there are, I would expect that the profit component is, the most significant one, the difference between the two.
Any further questions from the commissioners?
Dave?
Yes.
I have one question. Perhaps you would know this, perhaps you don't, but how many employees does Sun have?
We would be guessing, but in the thousands.
Do you happen to know their average raise per year?
No. Although, I mean, staffing costs are included in our profit and loss statements, which is specific to Beechwood.
One final question. Did Sun give bonuses to its executives?
I imagine they did. I don't have information specific to that.
Thank you.
Anything further from the commission? All right, with that, I think we'll move on to closings. I'll give the complainants an opportunity to go first, and then we'll turn it back over. I know you've already identified yourself, but if you could again for the record.
Sure, no problem. My name's Jackie Vesey. At its core, this case is about balance. The law does not say that rising costs alone justify an increase. It requires those costs to be weighed against the real impact on residents, and the impact here is significant. We are not renters who can easily relocate. We are homeowners who have made long-term investments in our properties, in this community, and in each other. Moving is not a realistic option for most of us, especially for seniors and those on fixed incomes. That reality makes any increase far more consequential. Over time, residents have also taken on additional financial burdens, costs that go beyond the base land fee. We've absorbed expenses for maintenance, snow removal, lawn care, and the increased utility usage tied to community requirements. These are not small or occasional costs. They are ongoing and they are meaningful. This community provides an important path to stable housing for people who need predictability the most. When increases outpace what residents can reasonably absorb, that stability is put at risk. We are asking the Commission to carefully apply the statutory standard and consider the full picture, not just the owner's expenses, but the cumulative burden on residents and the practical realities we face. A fair outcome here is one that allows the community to remain financially sustainable for both parties, not one that shifts disproportionate strain onto those least able to bear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and again, Wilson Carroll for the record. Sun is sensitive to the fact that costs are rising throughout the region and throughout the country. but rising costs strain budgets for businesses as well as individuals. And Sun is certainly not immune to those rising costs, as we've shown today. We have demonstrated through the P&Ls that Sun's operating expenses are rising at higher percentages than its average 5% or so rent increase, and that Sun continues to invest significant portions of its revenue on capital improvements that directly benefit its residents. And we have demonstrated that Sun Beechwood's rents are among the lowest in Connecticut, while their facilities, amenities, and services are among the best. Those facts, that compared to other mobile manufactured home communities in Connecticut, Sun Beechwood has among the lowest rent and the best community and the best amenities, address almost all of the statutory factors that this commission is required to consider, which I'll restate, none of those factors are how high the profits are, what the bonuses are paid. That's not what the statute requires this commission to consider. The complainants are asking for a cap on rent increases at no more than 0.25% above the consumer price index. The handout that I distributed shows that the CPI from March 2025 to March 2026 was 3.6%. So the complainants are asking this commission to set the maximum rent increase at 3.85%, which is 0.25% more than that 3.6 consumer price index rate. That would yield a proposed rent increase of $19.25, just $7.75 a month less than what Sun is proposing at $27. And that is a really important point, because by asking this commission to reduce the rent increase to $19.25, they are admitting that that reduction, a $7.75 reduction, would be a fair and equitable reduction. In other words, using the formula that the complainants propose, they are saying we think $7.75 less per month is fair and equitable, and $27, which is $7 and change more, is inequitable or harsh and unconscionable. They're asking this commission to put the line, the tipping point between fair and equitable and harsh and unconscionable is somewhere in the middle of that $7.75. That the difference between what is fair and equitable and what is harsh and unconscionable cannot be within $7. And as referencing the Stonegate Manor matter, the recent Fair Rent Commission matter in Wyndham, in that matter, Stonegate was charging $855 per month for the newer section of its community, and the commission reduced that rent to $650, a difference of $200. And that is still over $50 more per month than what Sun is proposing to increase its rent to. So a $200 reduction could be a difference between something that is harsh and unconscionable and what's fair and equitable. A $7.75 difference cannot. And with due respect to the complainants, they have not met their burden to prove that the proposed rent increase is unfair, inequitable, or harsh and unconscionable. And the commission should find that the proposed rent increase is fair and equitable, and the complaints should be dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, the evidentiary portion of the hearing is concluded. I do wish to take a very brief recess before we begin deliberations. Same as last time, call it 10 minutes tops. I just want to let people know, I do not expect, I could be wrong, I do not expect that we will complete deliberations today. But I think it's important that we begin them. So with that, I'm going to call a 10-minute recess, and I'll remind commissioners not to discuss these matters off the record. All right, if folks could return to their seats and quiet down, we'll get back on the record. All right, it is 4:27 p.m. We are back in session. The commission will now deliberate in public session and on the record. Before we do so, I would like to read again, for the record, the statutory standard and the required factors. Connecticut General Statute 7-148C presents the statutory standard. In determining whether a rental charge or a proposed increase in a rental charge is so excessive, with due regard to all the circumstances, as to be harsh and unconscionable, a Fair Rent Commission shall consider such of the following circumstances as are applicable to the type of accommodation. The 13 required statutory factors. 1. The rents charged for the same number of rooms and other housing accommodations in the same and in other areas of the municipality. 2. The sanitary conditions existing in the housing accommodations in question. 3. The number of bathtubs or showers, flush water closets, kitchen sinks, and lavatory basins available to the occupants thereof. 4. Services, furniture, furnishings, and equipment supplied therein. 5. The size and number of bedrooms contained therein. 6. Repairs necessary to make such accommodations reasonably livable for the occupants accommodated therein. 7. The amount of taxes and overhead expenses, including debt service thereof. 8. Whether the accommodations are in compliance with the ordinances of the municipality and the general statutes relating to health and safety. 9. The income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations. 10. The availability of utilities. 11. Damages done to the premises by the tenant caused by other than ordinary wear and tear. 12. The amount and frequency of increases in rental charges. 13. Whether and the extent to which the income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in improvements to the accommodations. The ultimate question for this commission: is this rental charge or proposed increase, with due regard to all applicable circumstances, so excessive as to be harsh and unconscionable? I would ask all commissioners to confine comments to the evidence presented today and to the statutory factors we are required to consider under Connecticut General Statute 7-148C. I would also ask all persons present to allow the commission to deliberate without interruption so that the decision-making process remains fair, orderly, and transparent. And with that, I will open it up. I will first invite commissioner comments regarding the amount and frequency of the rent increase itself.
Well, especially with regard to issue 13, which is one of the factors. We talked about a lot, we had a lot of discussion about it, and after hearing the evidence and looking at the materials, it seems to me that the proposed rental increase is totally divorced from reinvestment and improvement to the accommodations. And it seems to have nothing to do with that whatsoever, especially in regard to the information received over profit margin for the last 5 years, even taking into account the narrative that was provided today on management fees and some other things that may not have been included here. So it doesn't seem to connect at all to that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Other than just raising the rent, it has nothing to do with that statutory requirement.
Those wish to be heard on that?
I think that the amount and frequency of the increases in the rental charges have been consistent and unfair over the past numerous years. And therefore, I'm going to vote for the people.
I just want to remind the commission we're not taking a vote at this time. We're really deliberating with it once the vote occurs.
Well, I'm looking at the income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations. in and of the fact that they are a captive audience to the property, based on the fact that they cannot move the homes that they own, that is something that is important to reflect upon and to recognize that if they're continually given increases and they cannot keep those increases in their budget, they have nowhere else to go.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on the sole issue of the amount and frequency of the increase itself? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to the next.
Oh, I do have something on that.
So with regard to the statement that the attorney made about the increase and the $7 difference, when I speak to folks who are going to the pantry, $7 a month buys milk. And I can't forget that.
Any other comments from the commission on the issue of the amount and frequency of the rent increase itself? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next, I would invite commissioner comments regarding the tenant evidence concerning maintenance, snow removal, landscaping, and related services. Who wishes to be heard? My own personal thought on this, I did hear a lot of complaints as to, and I can be corrected if I misheard or if there's something that might elucidate it better, but I heard a lot of complaints about maintenance as it changed from prior ownership to current ownership. I'm not sure that I heard much about a deterioration of services from current ownership to the present. Could be incorrect, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the impression I got. Other comments, concerns, thoughts on this particular issue? Hearing none. Third, I would invite commissioner comments regarding the landlord's evidence of taxes, overhead, inflationary pressures, and operating expenses. Any commentary at all on this issue? Moving on. Fourth, I would invite commissioner comments regarding comparable rental value, habitability, and overall fairness. I'll begin on this point. I think evidence was given as to comps. I think it is persuasive evidence that the fees being charged are not out of line with comparables throughout the state. Pass this over to whoever would like to speak to this point. And I would strongly encourage commissioners to opine on this point because I think it's very important.
I know we were invited not to take into account Colchester Commons, but we have, I'm looking at this material, it's right in front of me, it's presented to us as evidence, and it is lower than any other comparable, and the reason it was, I asked a question on it, the answer as to why it was so much lower is because there was no profit margin involved with Colchester Commons because it's a resident-owned park. And I think, again, that goes to the question of what this proposed rental increase is about anyway. Is it really about reinvesting in maintenance at the park, or is it about something else? And I think it's about something else.
Are there any other comments or discussion on this point? Hearing none. I would invite commissioner comments on the ultimate statutory question, whether the present rental charge is harsh and unconscionable.
Well, for the reasons I've already been stating, it is. So I got nothing more to add to that.
I have to agree. We have a community that can't continue to have these increases levied upon them for the pleasure of the profit margins of a major corporation. We have to make sure that our neighbors are able to live under the umbrella of this community. Thank you.
Just to follow up briefly, it's the maintenance work that is anticipated by the owner, the maintenance work that may be requested by the residents, based upon the profit and loss statements that we saw, really has nothing to do with this proposed rental increase. The proposed rental increase is not really, the maintenance work can be done with or without the rental increase. And that's apparent to me from looking at the profit and loss statements. And so that underlines, for me, the concept of why it's harsh and unconscionable, because under the statute that we're looking at, it's not necessary to have this rental increase to reinvest in improvements to the accommodations.
I would just comment to that. To me, harsh and unconscionable, this will upset people, is a very high bar. Just is the increase necessary is not the question. The question is the increase harsh and unconscionable? To me, that means something that shocks the conscience. They have put on evidence. No, Sun has put on evidence that their cost of doing business has gone up. They've put on evidence of comparables, which I think is persuasive. And the argument made by counsel I do find persuasive. There is a gulf between harsh and unconscionable and fair and equitable. And I think the amount in question needs to be seriously considered.
Actually, I already said why I think it's harsh and unconscionable, so never mind.
Any commentary from anyone else on this point? Any further discussion on any issue we have not touched upon?
I would just like to say I think both cases were well argued and well presented. Thank you for that. I think each side presented to us what they would like to see happen, but I want to say this, and then now's the time for someone to say, no, we don't think you're right about that. I don't think we're not compelled to follow the complainant's proposal or the respondent's proposal. We could, but we're also allowed to draw our own conclusion that wasn't proposed by either side.
Any further discussion on this or any remaining matters? All right, at this point, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move that based on the standards and criteria set forth in the applicable Connecticut general statutes, including 7-148C and 7-148D et sec, that the proposed increase in the rental charge is harsh and unconscionable, and therefore for the period May 26 to May 2027, there shall be allowed no rental increase.
Do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this motion?
Well, it's my motion, so I'll speak in favor of it. To say that, as I said earlier during our preliminary discussions and deliberations, under the statute, my understanding, my reading of the statute in determining what is harsh and unconscionable, we should take into account, we're led to take into account by the statute why is there a rental increase? And we have these numerous factors. We've discussed some of them here today. We've heard lots of evidence on them. We've heard lots of testimony on some of these elements. Not all of them, because some of them relate more to apartments than manufactured home communities such as this one. But it's more than, the concept is more than element number 13, but element number 13 sort of encompasses everything. In some ways it encompasses everything we're talking about today, because the rental increase cannot just be free-floating. And it's supposed to be a rental increase that has been or will be reinvested in improvements to the accommodations. In my mind, it's harsh and unconscionable because it is untethered from that concept. Based on the profit and loss information that we saw, this rental increase is not necessary to accomplish the improvements to the accommodations that are anticipated by the respondent by multiple factors. I mean, this is a 6, if not 7-figure profit margin that we were presented with today, before you get to some sort of undefined deduction that should be taken from that. So when you take into account the amount of the proposed rental increase in the aggregate, it would, if it's not given, it would not hinder the respondent in any way from accomplishing the work that they are anticipating or that might need to be done in the park in the next 12 months.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll put the motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Our next order of business, we're not quite finished yet, folks. Give us just a moment to get you out of here. So I'm of the opinion this is going to require a written decision to that effect. I'd seek a motion that we prepare a written decision and then reconvene to adopt it. Do I have such a motion?
Ooh, sorry.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I guess I'll discuss it since it's my motion. I just think it's important that we have this written out in writing, that it's detailed. The vote has been taken, but we may have disagreements about language, specificity, so I strongly feel we should issue a written decision.
I think I ended up making a motion, but maybe we could ask council how, from council's perspective, how critical or not critical it is to do a written decision, since we've, all these deliberations and our discussion, all that have been recorded.
In my opinion, I think it's prudent to have a written decision. However, I would hold it as tight and close to the recording as possible, as the reason stated. But just for the purpose of an official notice and from whatever, would fall from there. Yeah, that's what you asked.
Any further discussion on this motion?
Did you want to say something besides what I asked you?
Well, I suppose what was also proposed was the idea of reconvening in order, I think, for the commission to perhaps adopt that written document. I think that's probably prudent as well, so that there's no misunderstanding about what those words are, or if there was any discussion need to be had before it was finalized. I think that's a good idea.
Any further discussion on this motion? Put it to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is 4:48 p.m. This oh, hold on, almost got it here. I think reconvene is fine. This meeting is now adjourned.